Boys, welcome back to the channel. This is Cultural Drive-By, Episode 3, the book review equivalent of a drive-by shooting. Zirhan Shao is our author today. We have two books that we're going to be covering. They are Iron Widow and its sequel, Heavenly Tyrant. What are these books? They have mecha stuff in them. It's about girl power. It's about queer stuff, ancient Chinese customs, but we have future tech. It's about communism, tranny stuff, badly written power fantasy, love triangle, polyamory stuff, natives versus colonizers, guess who the bad guys are, feminism, smash the patriarchy, our MC is a feminist who hates women. We also named the main character after Wu Zetian, the first and only Chinese empress. Now we'll talk about some of the real history around Wu Zetian at the very end. But do I recommend these books or what? Are we going to start this drive-by by pretending to be nice like we did with Daniel Green? Fuck no. These books suck. This author sucks. There's so much to talk about. I stole both of these books, so I have PDFs of them, and I'm going to be going off page numbers from that, but these are legitimately so awful, and I know your average kind of male genre fiction or manga or whatever that gets popular doesn't necessarily have good writing. Most of them don't, but holy shit, these were terrible. Now, a question many of you may be asking yourselves right now is, White Pill, would you personally drown Zirhan Zhao in a pig cage? In a word, yes. Not just because she's Chinese, but she's a
woman.
Yes, that is far more unforgivable than just being Chinese. She's a woman. She's also a popular content creator, so we really despise her for that. And we have full spoilers for all of this, so you can get these books for free if you went to Anna's archive. I don't recommend it. They're not good, but yeah, I want to talk about them. I read them. I'm going to be going by just notes I took and going to page numbers. And boys, for our very special episode of Zirhan Zhao, we have the most beautiful outro music. Now, I know what you're thinking. But White Pill, I could skip ahead right now and listen to the outro music. But that's cheating. You gotta listen to all this to get to the outro music, but it's special. It's very, very special for our very special friend. The author clearly has issues with not only herself being a woman, but definitely with her parents. I would say absolutely the mother, but definitely the father. And if she has a little brother, I'm not even really exaggerating here, but I think that's somewhat concerning. There's a lot of violence there for sure. So let's get to it. If you're only interested in the second book, then I have a timestamp down below for you, so you could just skip ahead to Heavenly Tyrant. But boys, I recommend just settling down, I don't know, listening to this while you work or drive, whatever. We're going to have very few visuals. This is for audio listening, so do what you will with that information. If you want to hear some midwit ramble and rant about how much I hated these weird power fantasy, radical feminist, crappy Chinese books, then hey, strap yourself in. We're going to go on a wild ride. I certainly hope I can be a good misogynist for all of you, and I'm going to do my best, like I always do. So we actually begin our gay little book before we get to the prologue with a trigger warning. This book contains scenes of violence and abuse, suicide, ideation, discussion and references to sexual assault, alcohol addiction, and torture. I always hate trigger warnings. In this world, we have people in the equivalent of China. They battle these giant metal insect monsters called Hunduns, and they operate in chrysalises, which are made out of the bodies of Hunduns. So it's sort of like Neon Genesis. Apparently, the author even said that this takes inspiration from some anime called Darling in the Franxx. I don't know what that is. I don't give a shit. I didn't watch it. Our protagonist, Yang Guang, is a pilot for this chrysalis, the nine-tailed fox. It's as tall as an 8-story building. He fully controls it. It takes two people to operate these things, and it's male-female pairings, with the male pilot being dominant, and the female pilot is kind of not really a co-pilot, but there's sort of a battery or whatever. Their spirit power combines and shit, Chinese mysticism and all that. So you have to use your life force, your ki or whatever to pilot it. And we get a shit ton of information in this prologue where apparently Hunduns came from space 2,000 years ago and they shattered humanity into scattered tribes. Their country is Huaxia. And he talks about this arrangement where I guess they sort of literally have gods, where they talk about bringing the dead corpses of Hunduns to places where the gods would accept them in exchange for technology and medicine. Didn't know how the hell that worked at first, but that's kind of interesting. So the female pilots, they're called concubines, right? And this one ends up dying from the effort of battling all the Hunduns. He says her sacrifice won't be in vain. And there we go. That's our prologue. Ooh, and now we have our first chapter with Wu Zetian, who is getting her eyebrows plucked right now. She had a big sister named Ryuji. She is in the forest right now with this guy, Yizhi, and Yizhi has this tablet. This world is like super misogynistic. It kind of like slams your head against the wall with it 1,000 times. But even though she's looking at Yizhi's tablets, women aren't really allowed to. She says here that elders say girls can't touch heavenly devices, that they would corrupt them. She doesn't respect the gods if they don't respect her back. Ooh, sassy. And this Yizhi guy is this rich boy that just is friends with Wu, and he is literally the son of the richest man in Huaxia. They met each other 3 years ago. Some history of her family. Her family sold her big sister as a concubine pilot into the military, and they want to do the same to Wu Zetian. And some pilot killed her sister not in combat, and since her big sister didn't die in combat, there's no compensation from the army for it, or at least not a big compensation. So like, okay, we're starting out with this mission of revenge for the big sister. We never really get to see the big sister on the page. So I know what you might be thinking. Well, what about the first chapter? Wasn't the concubine pilot who died supposed to be the big sister? Is in fact not the big sister. She doesn't exist anywhere on the page. There's a few memories, not even really in book 1, but a few in book 2. It's just kind of badly done. It's like, I know it's this emotional anchor, this reason for the plot kicking off, but it's just not well done. It's not well defined. So we just know that vaguely she wants revenge for her big sister. Yeah, their relationship isn't really fleshed out because she's already dead, and we don't have many concrete memories to draw from. While they're in the woods, they see this butterfly with 2 different wings, which means it's male and female. She says that gender isn't so rigid. I guess the author is pro-tranny. That's what I wrote in my notes. And since the mechas have a male and female seed, she questions what seed a hermaphrodite would take. We have a tranny speech at the top of 26. Female. That label has never done anything for me except dictate what I can or cannot do. No going anywhere without permission, no showing too much skin, no speaking too loudly or unkindly or at all if the men are talking, no living my life without constantly being aware of how pleasing I am to the eye. No future except pushing out son after son for a husband or dying in a chrysalis to give some boy the power to reach for glory. It's as if I've got a cocoon shriveled too tightly around my whole being. If I had my way, I'd exist like that butterfly, giving onlookers no easy way to bind me with such a simple label. The author, from what I can tell on social media and everything, is not like a female to male tranny, not at all, but there's definitely some weird stuff. There's juicier stuff later on, but she really just does not like being a woman, definitely does not like being herself. We have such amazing dialogue here. We have this on the top of 27. This is from Yizzy. Sorry, was I... Oh no, was that too weird? A chuckle shakes out of him. On a scale of 1 to middle-aged man asking you to put on a smile for him, how uncomfortable did that make you? Very good dialogue as well. Boys, I made a discovery the other day about the word macaroni. Macaroni. Did you hear it? I can say it slower. Macaroni. Listen, 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 listen. Like, listen to my enunciation. Macaroni. One syllable. One. I said it with one syllable. One. A Jew cannot do this. No, no, no. They would have to say it with 3 or even 4 syllables. Macaroni. One syllable. I said it with one syllable. I speak only truth. Wu Zetian's plan is to go into the army and to be a concubine pilot for Yang Guang, the pilot from the prologue who killed her sister, and that is her entire motivation right now. Yizzy offers to marry her because he's in love with her. She says no, and she also has to walk around with this cane because she had her feet broken at a very young age by her family and actually lost toes from it and struggles to walk. They did this because of like the foot binding stuff in China, which is really fucking gross and weird, but they wanted women to have really small feet. So if they were trying to sell you off to be like a wife to a rich dude, the rich dude would expect the woman to have like small feet. So that's what they would do to young girls, which is really fucked up and disturbing. I'm not saying that's not disturbing. I'm not saying that like I wouldn't advocate to end such a practice being done to women. But we'll get into like more of the cringy like feminist girl power shit. But for like that, it's like, yeah, I think most people would agree that that's pretty fucked up. But she's walking home. Men look at her, giving her the ick. They live on the edge of the frontier in their little village. There's this shortage of women, and she dreams of being in a chrysalis, and she could free all the girls who loved her on the way. And she also talks about if she doesn't get home before dark, search parties will come out to look for her because you can't have daughters thinking it's possible to run away. Realistically, where would you go? Oh, okay. I forgot to mention this. So the Great Wall exists, and it's like a super Great Wall. And on the outside of the Great Wall are all of the Hundun bug monsters that'll like eat and kill you. So I don't know where you're running to, honey, but forget it. She weighs the consequences of murdering this pilot because if she does this, it will kill the rest of her family. But ultimately, she decides that she doesn't care. Her mother doesn't/won't hear her out. She talks about since they don't care about her, she doesn't have to care about them. She's angry at her mother because her mother doesn't really stand up for her. She says, but a mother who has failed me so thoroughly is no mother of mine. And yeah, she's an abusive household. Her dad's mean and yells and is physically abusive towards her and her mother. And okay, she does have a younger brother. I forget if the younger brother's ever named. I believe he is named a single time in the second book, but everyone likes the younger brother because obviously the younger brother is male, so he is valued a lot more in this family and in society. There's a lot of deep resentment there, and I think there's definitely something there with the female to male stuff that's in this book and the desire to become a man. And the day before she's supposed to be sent away to go to like chrysalis pilot training, The Yizzy guy comes and he offers to pay any price to marry her. She still rejects it. She is disgusted by the idea of having kids. Something that I sort of question is, where do all of her, like, because she lives in a deeply patriarchal society, right? This is a rather harsh patriarchal society. So where do all these radical ideas come from? I think it's reasonable to think that a woman would probably imagine a life where things aren't so bad for her, that she had a better, more equal life in comparison to the men around her. But she just has like a lot of extremely radical ideas, and I feel like there needs to be like a little something there. Like, I could believe her having some beliefs about like a better system, but not a system that's completely turned on its head. You know what I mean? Like, in terms of like overthrowing a monarchy, for most like peasant rebellions or whatever, the idea wasn't to end the monarchy overall and there's no more nobility and lords and all that. It's just like a change of a king and maybe lesser taxes. It's not a completely turn the system, but she kind of wants a complete 180 from the system, which I don't know. There's probably people like that who did exist, but that is kind of a extremely radical position, especially coming from there's no women around her, like no female friends, not her mother, not her grandmother, that even express any notion of being even just a mild feminist, right? So it's a little, in addition to their people, there are some, I don't care if this is, and I hope that this is racist, but there's some Mongol people out there called the Rotary or whatever. I don't really care, but basically her family's just racist towards them and shit talks them and says that they're bad examples, which is cool. And apparently the women with the Mongol people are treated a bit better. But I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that at no point in time was a Mongol horde led by some female girl boss. I'm just going on a limb. I'm just stretching myself a little bit, but I'm pretty sure that never actually ever occurred. But whatever. Yeah, I can believe some cultures would be different towards women, and that makes sense. But she's not even like friends with them. Like, these women who have greater mobility and freedom in their own lives and culture, it's not like she has a friend who's with that tribe and then learned about some feminist stuff from her, which maybe that, yeah, that could have helped. So we immediately fly in a little hovercraft. We just cut to the army shows up to her at this testing facility. She scores a 684, which is apparently super rare. And they also perform maidenhood tests to make sure they're virgins, because not only are they supposed to be like co-pilots, not even co-pilots, right? They're really in secondary positions to the male pilots, but, they're supposed to live with the male pilots in downtime and, be there for comfort and such. That's why they're concubine pilots. Some of the other women at the testing facility are kind of bitches to them. We had this on page 49. Okay, so Wu Zetian, she also has a hidden like dagger in a pin in her hair, but the pin really stands out and doesn't go with her outfit. And one of the other girls says like, hey, are you sure that pin really goes well with your makeover? Maybe you should get rid of the pin. The pin doesn't match. Doesn't it look out of place? Says no one needs such a big pressure to be a good concubine, which felt honest. This felt something that women would probably say and do. I've seen this before in my own life where this woman made a comment about this other woman eating a lot. The other woman was not particularly fat, she's a little chubby, but she also had just given birth, and it just felt like very cruel. And I don't know why this person would make that comment, but it felt really shitty. But I can believe that that's like actually something women would kind of do to each other, despite, yes, queen girl power, they seem to kind of attack each other quite a bit. But anyways, Anyways, Yang Guang shows up, they bow, they call the boy master, and he takes her to his tower because she also got like the highest score of all the concubines there because she's just really, really good, I guess. Yang seems like a really nice guy. He's not being too pushy or anything. They talk about some lore like 200 years ago, they had this emperor, pilot, king, and they lost a province that 200 years ago when the emperor got sick. And apparently, the emperor is still alive out in the lost province and is waiting in this volcano to one day be restored. Surely we wouldn't lay out all that lore just to not do that. But oh, we'll get there, boys. We'll get there. She remembers this video call of her sister when her sister had a black eye, and she's doubting now if this is really the right man. Has she made a mistake? Is Yang really innocent? Because they really don't know anything about what happened. She just knows that her sister died and it wasn't in combat. Oh, our author is not describing herself, but describing her character, Wu Zetian, who is not a self-insert in the slightest, but on page 60, oval face, pale and flawless with powder, watery eyes, looking twice their usual size thanks to black liner and peach shadow. Button nose, contoured, thin and straight, lips painted like lacquered rose petals. I look as beautiful as everyone told me I'd look if I conformed to their standards. I look as beautiful as Big Sister was. So by the way, even though like beauty standards suck, my self-insert is totally like really, really hot. Just so you know, in case you're wondering, my character is super hot. She almost has sex with Yang, but then there's this siren because the Hunduns are attacking the Great Wall. She panics and doesn't want to actually go into battle, but he binds her with tape and such and literally throws her over his shoulder, and she can't scream or move as she's forced into the female pilot position in the chrysalis. Wow, I wonder what this is a metaphor for. Anyways, we're now in this dream jungle. We have flashes of memories of girls, and these girls are repeating the same lines over and over again, but they're all different. There's flashes of him slamming girls' faces into a wall. There's a child manifestation of the male pilot asking for help, and she is choking the boy to death and kills the kid. I obviously don't like this guy because he has killed a woman. He did actually kill her big sister and has been abusive and torturing some other women. And I will have more evidence as we get into later in this book and into the second book. But we do have in this dream this violence against this male child being this proxy for some severe issues, this kind of inferiority complex, right? We have this younger brother at home that she doesn't really discuss, but she's like screaming internally of how jealous she is. She many times over about wanting to not be a woman and would rather be a man. So there's something there about killing a male child specifically, because you could have done a lot of things in a dream world, but it is about killing a boy. Almost kind of like a male to female tranny, where a lot of them do want to commit violence towards women, I guess, because as delusional and crazy as they are, they ultimately know that they can't like change into another gender, right? A male to female is a male to male. Because that delusion is shattered every time they see just a normal woman, they want to take it out on them. So it sort of felt like that a little bit. She faces him in yin yang realm. He chains her and she shatters the chains, which was just, that was amazing. She stabs and kills him in the dream and takes over the fox. They're still in the middle of the battle and she can't really control the fox. And she says, "No more killing girls," on page 76. She threatens another chrysalis pilot. She feels grief and sadness and anger when they kill the Hunduns. I'm sure this won't be manifested female rage and be revealed at some point. So they're doing the battle, and she says on 77, in the legends told lovingly to my brother, the world Hundun originally referred to a being of primordial chaos. One day its divine friends took pity on its lack of senses and decided to chisel eyes, ears, nostrils, and a mouth into it. Little things like that, and I have a few more to point out. Lovingly told to my brother, and she's in the middle of this fucking battle, and is this the time for all this shit? The battle is over, and they do in fact win. And on page 80, after they win, the other mech pilots are calling for Yang Gang because they don't know that he's dead. I stare blankly at Yang Guang's face. I imagine slapping it, punching it, lacerating his flesh in ribbons off his bones, but he's so puny compared to the Hunduns. I just flick him on the cheek. The Headless Warrior keeps calling for this boy, this corpse that will never hear him again. So Yang's like a 20-something-year-old man, but she does decide to not call him a man, but a boy. She has murdered this boy, and it feels really, really good. She gets pleasure out of it. She opens up like the top of the mech, like its head, and she smiles as she literally steps on his corpse and is laughing as camera drones watch, and she says to all, welcome to your nightmare. So after this, we cut to her being interrogated. She is under questioning. She is given the name Iron Widow on page 86. So what's supposed to happen is the male pilot uses the female pilot, and sometimes, not always, but the female pilot might die during the battle, and that's just a noble sacrifice. But in reality, sometimes the opposite happens, and women have been known to kill their male pilots, which is not supposed to occur. And what that actually means is the girl had a stronger spirit pressure than a man. She questions what happened to these other Iron Widows. Do they honestly fear girls more than Hunduns? There's no emperor or anything at this point. There's a council of sages, and the military's in control. So there's like two minor officials that are advocating for her because she has such a high spirit pressure, which is super rare. So they're going to keep this a secret, and they're telling her to pair with someone else. And they're actually going to pair her up with a guy who has the highest spirit pressure, and this is to kill her, right? They're going to use her, and then the guy with the highest spirit pressure is just going to kill her in a normal battle. She overpowered Yang, who had a spirit pressure of 6,000. She is the Iron Princess. And what was intended to be this suicidal mission to kill Yang, and then she doesn't really care about the consequences and her own family being punished for it, has now turned into, I want to fight for all the girls, find out what's going on with this Iron Widow shit, but she doesn't want to die anymore. She has a purpose in like toppling the patriarchy and such. Isn't that just great? She has a dream of her sister, and her sister basically says, hey, do the most damage that you can, like topple their system, be their nightmare, Wu Zetian. And she's here to fight for all the girls. And she cares for her sister. The book constantly says how much that she cares about her sister, but there's not too many memories of the sister. I sorta understand starting with the prologue with Yang, and then, oh, this guy that seems like he's okay and a decent warrior, actually, he's a horrible piece of shit, and yes, all men. I get that for your feminist book, but I think you do need a better anchor, and I will say, if a male author had written this and it was like a guy avenging his girlfriend or wife who had been murdered like the big sister, you would accuse the male author of fridging a female character because she just exists to be killed, and for the male character to go on this quest of revenge for her, right? So just saying, just a little hypocrisy, just a little teeny tiny bit there. The guy she's paired up with is super ripped, questions if he is a boy or beast. She's definitely gonna fuck this guy, and apparently other people have talked about him before. Yang called him a murderer in the prologue, but he is the killer of his own family, And he has also murdered every concubine pilot that he's been paired up with so far. Not murdered, but every time he's gone into battle, he has ended up killing the woman that he's been paired with. She has been thrown into the wolf's den. This does really read like women's fiction. I'm not saying all women write like this, but he's half boy, half beast. He's the wolf. Oh, he's super ripped, bad boy, killed his own family. Oh man, is he gonna fuck me? That's really what this shit is. He's this half breed. He's half Mongol, so he's also like really not well liked by the other guys, not only because he's a murderer, but because he's not fully Chinese. Oh, all right. So we're in battle again pretty fast after she'd been like in isolation, and then she's in battle with this guy. We're in another dream world. There's memories of this guy killing his younger brother with a meat cleaver. Also, there's this girl in the dream. She kills another dream boy and then tries to murder him in the yin-yang world. Fighting, but both end up surviving. And then she has some memories of her grandpa beating up her grandmother. They record her spirit pressure after the battle, and they had a combined pressure, like both of them, of 18,000, which is the highest recorded in like centuries. So in fact, they are super special and unique. We get some backstory with the boy. The boy is called, I should probably name him, shouldn't I? The boy is called Shimon. He let him go to school since his dad was Chinese. If his dad had been the Mongolian in the relationship, then he wouldn't have gone to school. That's based. They are also a balanced match, which means that their spirit pressures are equal. So sometimes during the battle, like a man would end up killing the woman because his spirit pressure is so greater than hers. But if you're a balanced match with your concubine pilot, then that means there's no risk of you killing the other person in battle. So this is super rare. So, the army is not killing them right now, but they really don't like them either. They're being forced to live in the same small cell right now. We have some rather cringy talk where, she thinks that this guy is maybe going to rape her, and then he starts going like all male feminist, even though he's like this super badass that's like jacked. He's also like, I think you've been lied about what male needs are like. We aren't animals. Yes, our desires are pretty strong, but they're not overpowering. There's no such thing as going mad because of them. A bitter laugh grinds out of me like glass shards. Tell that to all the girls getting raped as we speak. Whoa. Deep. We get some backstory. Apparently he killed his brothers because they were raping a girl. We also get some race politics because he was half Mongolian. His brothers were full Chinese. So he was less trustworthy than Han's word against him. He killed his big brother, and then he killed the younger brother and dad in self-defense. The family of the girl who was being raped ended up drowning the girl because she had been dishonored. Now the army has them training together. There was this rumor that he had a balanced match before. They're doing some photo ops. And Wu, at this point, is just going along with it. She doesn't really have a better plan, but she's not going to try to murder him now that they're a balanced set. Some more stuff where Shimon should have his name on the leaderboards because he's the best pilot, but they won't put his name up there because he was a criminal, and they just don't want his name up there. This is like forced dating, a trope female readers really like. They also do, oh no, I was forced in the cell with this super muscular ripped Chad who was also a deeply empathetic feminist. I hope he doesn't use me like a chew toy. Anything but that. That's what this fucking book is. Like, I'm not joking. They literally do ice skating together as part of some of their training. Can I ask a fucking question? If that's okay? This chick cannot walk on her own. She has to use a cane because she has bound feet, like little lotus feet, right? So if she can't walk, how is she able to fucking ice skate? Because I don't really do ice skating, but I would assume there's a great deal of pressure on your feet and you have to have really strong feet and strong muscles down there. She doesn't have that. She's even missing some toes. How does that work? To be fair, in regards to the forced dating thing, do men do something similar? Sort of, I guess. If you've read The Black Company, there's sort of some female characters that kind of scratch that itch for men. There's obviously one correct female character that you're supposed to love in The Black Company, and then there's the meme one that normies would pick. But we all know who the correct choice is there. Some pilots hassle them when they're in the dining hall. It's not common for men to have yin-based ki. Qin Zhang, who was the emperor that maybe is in this volcano and is just waiting all this time, is an exception. I wrote this in my notes. Will that emperor be revealed to have truly been a woman? This pilot tries to attack Wu, so Shimin gets in a fight with them, and Shimin is literally strangling that pilot with his own chains. Deep. I was literally shaking as I read that. 146, there's a question if dead girls reincarnate into the Hunduns, and that's why they're so angry, and that's why you can feel all this grief and anger when they're destroyed. Book 2 also doesn't answer this, but I assume in Book 3, we'll get something there about the Hunduns are like super feminist or some bullshit. A pilot breaks into her room to kill her and possibly rape her, but the sudden appearance of Yizzy, the rich boy, saves her. She cries with Yizzy on 152. This was interesting. I want to read all this. She says, I'm so tired of being a girl. Yeah, if you were a boy, you'd be ruling the world by now. She jokes about making a wish and having it granted by some spirit. She literally says in the text, make me a boy. Yizzy says he's done a lot of research on Shimin. Shimin was apparently the top of his class, so not only is he super buff, he is also really intelligent, and he's also a male feminist, and he's also like super hot. Did I mention he's super hot too? Wow. And he's really good at calligraphy as well. And I don't know if this became more common, but I believe in Japan, which I know is a very different culture from China. I fucking get it. But I always thought that calligraphy was associated with more of the upper classes, and it's not something that the working class or the poor would ever have time for or do. Yizzy's talking about Shimin's case. Anyway, it's kind of sad. I think he was genuinely trying to make a life for himself before, and they tried him as an adult for some reason, even though he was only 16. And she doesn't buy that response. Well, she says that, are we exonerating murderers now because the writing is pretty? But I think if you're 16 and you take a gun out and you point it at someone and you pull the trigger, you know exactly what you're doing. I think if you're 15 and do that, and 14 and 13, I don't know how young I would consider it to be an act of murder, but yeah, I think, I don't really agree with that I had no idea what I was doing. I think you really did. I think there's too much infantilizing of youth, especially urban youth, when it comes to violent acts, and he's a good boy, didn't do nothing. And in this situation, Shimin didn't really do nothing except maybe the murder of the younger brother. I don't know how you justify that. It's like, oh, it was an accident. Okay, he wasn't the one doing the rape. The dad tried to fight and kill you, so that's justified. The brother was committing a horrible act, so you killed him. I'm fine with that. But the younger brother, I still think that's murder, Hoss. I still think that's murder. Look, I get it for this author, but if it was old white pill media and me at 16 walked up and just killed a girl, you wouldn't be going, poor sweet baby. Also, we have some more backstory about Shimin. This is so written by a woman. He got underground street fights, and that's why he got bad eyes from reading in the bad light in between fights. That is such a woman thing to write. That's why he has bad eyesight, and that's why he wears glasses. Really? That's just silly. Also, Yizzy seems like kind of gay for Shimin. Like a little like not subtly kind of gay, and talks about like him being kind of hot which is gross. She questions that. This isn't something that really comes up with the author or with Wu Zetian, but she says here on 157 that she's been transfixed by pictures of women herself, but the character doesn't really express anything resembling a bisexuality or a lesbianism. I think this is probably in here to appear more, I guess, queer, as the youth would call it, the poodle heads, because it's good to be anything besides straight. Being straight is, in fact, bad. So there's something there, I guess. Yizzy, he got a job with like military intelligence or whatever. So now the three of them are renting this large suite together. We get some lore here on 160. The Hundans apparently came to their world for Kui. They need this to heal and to replicate. She and Yizzy were being a little close with each other, and she saw Shimin look displeased with it, and she reflects on this memory of her mom living in fear of the dad, and the dad at times being like this bomb that's about to go off. I thought this was a decent memory, actually, and an insight into her character. She's also now having sex with Yizzy, and she's taking the lead, kind of like a man. Yizzy is also... he's not just, this sweet, rich boy who's super smart. He also has a bunch of tattoos, seems like sort of maybe criminal tattoos. Ooh, this sweet, innocent angel boy. He's got a dark side, too. Whoa. He says that his dad made him get them, and they stop just before having sex. Shimin is actually in some agony. He's in some alcohol withdrawal, and it's actually worse than just withdrawal. And boys, speaking of fake dating, this reminded me on this date I went on with this woman, and I thought it was fine at first. She was a little weird. We were both kind of awkward, first date jitters and such. But then, her vagina went all Gravemind from Halo 3.
Child of my enemy, why have you come? I offer no forgiveness.
I thought it would be rude to leave, so I just kept eating my turkey club and fries, but it made me reflect on what it means to be a good male feminist. And, you have to be understanding that women's bodies are a little different than men's bodies, and you have to be a little accommodating, like, oh, sweetie, do you have some menstrual cramps right now? I'm here for you. So, yeah. Be empathetic. Be better. Be better. You have to teach men to be better. When did this channel become like Family Guy cutaway gags? We didn't used to do that. I even put Subway Surfers in the bottom right corner. Yeah, just to try to keep viewer retention. That's actually been playing for this entire video, but it helps with Zoomer retention. So just trying out new things for the channel. Yeah, you have to adapt. Turns out Shimin, who Wu has noticed is he drinks a lot. He drinks a lot. He's actually going through alcohol withdrawal, and he's dying from it. And the Hundans attack, and he's in no condition to fight, but the strategists want them to fight. Because not everyone in the central command is on their side and cares that they have a really high spirit pressure. Our main antagonist representing these strategists is An Lushan, and he's a fat guy. I was surprised. That Zirhan decided to make this antagonist fat and point out how fat they are at multiple times. It felt very fat-phobic. It felt like fat shaming, and yeah, I was very offended by that, but that's what she went with. Is this body shaming? Oh, but this guy's really based and cool. He tells her to shut up. Men are speaking. They offer Shimin liquor to go fight. She knocks a bottle to the ground and she gets slapped. And just him going through alcohol withdrawal, we barely got introduced to him. He shows up, they immediately get in the bird and do a fight. They have the little dream sequence. Then they're in solitary for a little bit. We speed through training. We never slow down and go through ice skating, even though ice skating is impossible for Wu because of her feet. But it's just like, hey, we're doing training right now. We're trying to like bond so we can work better as a team and all that. All of that is really sped up and very bad. And now it's, oh my God, this guy's dying from alcohol withdrawal. It's like, okay, I don't really know Shimon too well, so I don't think I really care that he's going through withdrawal. Yeah, it just happens too fast. And they managed to avoid the guards and not go into that battle because they hadn't had enough. Like, you have to recharge for like 2 weeks in between battles to like replenish your battle key or whatever. So this was just the strategist trying to kill them, but they are able to get away. And then Zatan decides that they need to get some allies. So she tries to reach out to the White Tiger pair, who are a balanced set. This woman is fully Mongolian. The girl tells her to stay away from her partner, and in her partner's mind, because she also does the dream thing, she saw Zatan in there and even calls her a man-killing whore, slams her head against the wall, which is very based. We have another pilot here, Mai Zhu Ying, who is the female pilot of the Black Tortoise. They're also a balanced set. She's also racist to Mongolians, which was based. And she asks if she's all right. She gossips. She has 2 sons. And she just compares pregnancy to being a tool of control used against women, where, okay, yes, when a woman is pregnant, she is more dependent on those around her, her family, her husband, her community at large. But that's just kind of natural. That's not really a tool for control. That's just wanting to make sure that everything goes okay with the pregnancy and the baby is delivered safely and healthy. I don't know. It's just, this is how the author's mind works. And so the Black Tortoise is just trying to talk to her and say, like, hey, you know, not all women in this pilot program thing have like super high spirit pressure and all that. Most of them are in not good positions and they're trying to just do the best with what they have. So try to be more understanding. And she says, yeah, I'll try to be more understanding that everyone's in a different situation. But she doesn't like actually mean that. She does extremely little to promise that she'll try to understand everyone. She has this little rant here that I will read out. How do you take the fight out of half the population and render them willing slaves? You tell them they're meant to do nothing but serve from the minute they're born. You tell them they're weak. You tell them they're prey. You tell them over and over until it's the only truth they're capable of living. Okay, are women physically weaker than men? Yes, that's okay. Just look at male-to-male trannies in female sports. It's rather obvious. It makes sense that women biologically, mentally would be more subservient around men. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying men should be abusive, but I'm saying it's natural that women would at default be more subservient, more supportive. Also, biologically, let's say a man impregnates a woman and then he goes off and he dies in battle or on some hunt or something. That child will still come to be as long as the woman is safe. It makes sense for women to risk adverse because they need to protect their baby, they need to protect their young. Whereas for a man, it's still very important for the man to be around to support his family and everything. But if he dies, you know, after the seed has been planted, the baby will still come to be. Literally, physically built different for battle, for fighting, and it's just, why are women subservient? It has to be because of just societal constructs and the patriarchy. Or maybe it's biology, and biology has brought this system about. I don't know, maybe if we were like reptiles or fish or something, where I don't know if like snakes, but so like the female snake, it like lays eggs, and then I think the male snake just like slithers over them and he like jizzes. But I still think the female snake stays around the nest to protect the eggs and to protect the young, but it's not as intensive as like a mammal protecting their young and giving birth. But yeah, it makes sense for the way that women behave and the way for men to behave. It's just silly. You're working from backwards. Women have a subservient position, therefore it's the patriarchy. It's not. Women are biologically pre-proposed to be more risk adverse, therefore this system came to be. Little bullshit like that. And she just seems to kind of hate every woman that's not like her and doesn't want to be like an extreme feminist. And, she'll say that she doesn't hate like every man, but she kind of really does. That pops up quite a bit, where she literally does kind of hate everyone, unless it's like the two guys that she's having sex with. She technically hasn't had sex with the second one yet. And they're also super subservient to her and do everything that she wants. And, maybe relationships aren't really balanced. Maybe there is always going to be a dominant partner, and that dominant partner is typically going to be the man. But, she's kind of taking the man's position in this relationship. Isn't this unfair to Shimon and to Yizzy? But that's not really reflected upon. And they're trying to get the public to care about them and to put pressure on the government to not kill them by being like media sensations, because pilots are kind of pop stars in their world. They like have a lot of media buzz and publicity, so they're trying to just do like the edgy boy, edgy girl routine to try to build up a following in that manner. And they talk about how they went out a couple hundred years ago, this one pilot, and he made contact with this other group of people called Hindu. So we're talking about India here, and it just doesn't make sense that. So we sent some guy out across the wasteland, which is full of the Hunduns, and then we met the Hindu people and we talked about it. But you have really great technology, you have radio technology, you have mass communication, you have high-speed internet, all of this. There shouldn't be a lost civilization out there. Because I guess to survive, as long as they have, the Hindu people must also have chrysalises, so they must have relatively sophisticated technology. So it doesn't quite work for me that, if you guys have the internet and then they have the internet, you should be able to find each other. But maybe I'm wrong, but it's just weird to me that they're so isolationist. And it's not like out of these other civilizations try to contact us, but we refuse communication with them. It's just, we don't talk to anybody, and no one's ever tried to reach out like over the internet or some bullshit, which that does not work for me. And they're trying to avoid being tributed by working with Yizzy's dad, who owns the media company. Tributed means that the sages send you out to be killed because you're too troublesome of a pilot. You're maybe getting out from under their leash that they have on you. They do come to terms with Yizzy's father, and so their dad is going to start promoting them in the media and using his contacts. We had this description on 194. I have to read this out. The night wind keens across the Hundan wilds like a dead concubine crying out from the beyond, stirring Lee Shimon's chopped hair, chilling me down to the marrow. What a beautiful description. That was really, really deep. It's like a dead concubine crying out from the beyond. Very good, very good. Jesus Christ. So they have spirit armor stuff, and if they wear this, it lets them use their ki to do a little spirit power stuff outside the chrysalis. It's not, they can't do a bunch of really great stuff with it, but it's pretty decent. They also have flight suits with wings. So she flies off the wall with ki, and she's crying as she flies. This woman who has struggled to walk for the majority of her life can now fly freely through the air. I actually thought this was a decent scene, and in a better book with characters I cared about, then, this could be something. We don't have to have a lovable main character that we really care about and we want to see how their journey ends. Not every protagonist has to be that, but you have to be very interested in the world, in the story, in what's going on. I have to care about her journey and what's going to happen to her and how her actions will influence the world. I just don't really care. She's just an unpleasant piece of shit, and the world isn't super interesting or thought out. I only finished these books, obviously, to make this video. Otherwise, 100% I would have fucking dropped them. There's technically two people that are on their side that are with the sages, but the other guy isn't really talked about at all, and frankly, he should have been cut. I don't know why he was even brought up, but Yeah, he's not really a character. I can't even remember his name. I don't think I even wrote it down. But Shima Yi wants them to sleep together so that they can be better pilots. That's what all the other pilot pairs do. She's totally against it, and I won't lower myself to that, woman stuff. I had maybe my favorite thing. This is perhaps the best scene out of both books. I think this is the best scene, but the fat guy on Lushan, he shows up again. So there's a bunch of soldiers, right? It's raining, and one of the soldiers is holding this tablet with An Lushan's fat face, and a guy is holding an umbrella over the tablet, and he's gleefully telling them that he's going to force them into the next battle, even though they're not ready for it. That's perhaps my favorite image in both books. Just the fat guy on the tablet. You did a good job, Ziran. You did a good job here. That's it. There's nothing else. There's nothing else. And they try to resist, and she even gets shot by a soldier, but they're still pressed into battle. On 202, she asks why he's so nice to her when she's such a piece of shit to him, and it's because she's like this miracle girl for him because he's the first girl he's gone into battle with that he hasn't ended up killing by piloting, so he can't lose her, which, okay. Oh, and while the battle's going really badly, Yizzy gives them ki, like he acts as a battery, and like they touch hands, and like he's able to send his energy force over to them and joins them inside the Vermilion Bird. I don't know if I mentioned that, but that's the chrysalis that Shimon has. Says that the triangle is the strongest shape. This was on 219. Which is just weird poly crap. She's in the hospital after the battle, and the guys fell asleep, and they were holding hands. Like, they're supposedly both gay or bisexual, but that's not really developed at all. It's really about her and having like these two guys fuck her. That's basically what the story is about. But yeah, it's just, I don't know what message that's supposed to be for, I guess, young women. That's the target audience for these books, but that's really just fucked up and stupid if you actually think just, has any of that ever worked? Just like looking at the polyamory community online, do any of these people seem like upstanding? Well, one, are they attractive? No. But two, are they like mentally sound? Are they productive? Are they decent people that live in a decent society? No, they're really, really not. They're highly dysfunctional and fun to laugh at, but it's just bizarre. So they're now traveling to the capital to visit Yizzy's dad. Yizzy's mom was a maid of this guy and got flogged to death on 224. Of course she was. We just kind of hop around a lot. Like, we're at the wall, we're doing training stuff. Now we're going to the capital, and it's just like boom, boom, boom. I don't have a great sense of space, which I think can be okay. I think sometimes less is more, but here it feels like less is less, where I don't really fully understand how everything looks and how like everything kind of feels and that. Oh, and his mom was specifically killed by the dad ordering her flogged to death for not smiling with enough enthusiasm at a banquet he held for the sages. Wow, edgy. Guy's throwing them this big party to celebrate the pilots, and she has to sign a contract with him. He offers them some drinks, and she tries to refuse. Shimon gives in, and she has to smack the glass to the floor. He then makes Shimon go, and this friendly, bubbly guy now turns really nasty, and he wants her to strip naked and read out their media contract out in the nude so he can film it. Jesus Christ. She has to do this or she gets no deal, and if she doesn't get a deal, then they will probably be killed by the sages sooner rather than later. Promises to come back to kill this guy. She mentally thinks that. She doesn't say it. Shame and humiliation are self-imposed emotions, and from here on out, I choose not to feel them. This is on 235. That's not true. That's a horrible take, and she doesn't fully backtrack this later. I'll talk about that scene, but okay, you choosing to be ashamed and such can be self-imposed, but your community can be ashamed of you. Your family can be ashamed of you. Your partner, like your friends. There's a lot of situations when people can be ashamed of you. That's not really self-imposed. I don't know. It just feels like this weird girl boss. My actions are my actions. I don't care about the consequences. Well, you kind of should. If you do a bunch of shit which lowers your social standing in your community, like you're just being a piece of shit, then yes, that will have a direct negative impact on your world. So that was dumb, and she does get nude, but yeah, she vows revenge. She's now on this leash, but she's trying to catch the media's attention. Yizzy went on this talk show to talk about them and their relationship, and yeah, being with the Vermilion Bird. On 242, we have this. More lore, some information about the gods. Whenever they leave tribute for the gods, no one ever sees them, and leaving out a camera drone doesn't work. It can't like get close to the gods, so no one has seen them in any capacity. They leave Hunden husks. They also leave lumber, soil, seeds, some animals, and girls. They always leave girls every time they give tribute to the gods. So Yizzy says this to her because he's kind of jealous about the relationship that Shimon has with her. Where does jealousy come from? If not an insecurity that I'll lose you because of him, that's not how it works, no matter how many people believe it so. You're not something to be kept or taken, and love isn't some scarce resource to battle over. Love can be infinite as much as your heart can open. I mean, when you think about it, love is fueled mostly by compatibility, whether two people make each other happy by being close. So it'd be pointless of me to resent Shimon, however compatible you are with him. It doesn't have anything to do with how compatible you are with me. That's retarded. This is retarded. Unfortunately, it's not the most retarded thing that this author writes. Love can be infinite? That's not true. That's not fucking true. Look, if you walked around in the world and you said, I love every human being equally, that's crap. That means you fucking love no one. Love is special, like the love for your child. It doesn't mean that you hate all other children in the world, but your own child carries a special love compared to like a niece, a nephew, a cousin. Those are still very important to you, and I'm sure you do love them, but it's to a lesser degree, like the love of your partner, your wife, your husband is very different from random guy on the street, right? Or random person out in the world. If you say, I love you deeply and infinitely to a crack addict, then that love doesn't really make sense. If everyone is your best friend, then you don't have a best friend. So no, there's a hierarchy to love. There are tiers of love, and no one can love anyone. It's just bullshit and meaningless. You've diluted the concept of love. And I don't know how common this polyamory shit is now. It feels more like a Reddit thing and just dysfunctional, degenerate people. I don't think it's very mainstream. Hopefully not. But if someone's just actively fucking someone that's not you, but they really love you, you're kind of retarded. It's very pathetic, and that's not really a relationship. Yes, being in a relationship has exclusivity, and it should. It would be very dumb if it didn't. She has had sex with Yizzy at this point. She still hasn't had sex with Shimon, and experiencing some dreams that Shimon has had. There's this memory he has of that fat guy, An Lushan, making Shimon addicted to alcohol. They had him tied down, and they were forcing whiskey down his throat. Very based, very red-pilled. An Lushan, he's a fat guy. He appears on tablets. He's kind of crazy. Based. So they're also going to do like this crowning ceremony for Shimon and for her. So they're getting a few other pilot pairs to join them. So they actually meet the pilot pairs at the Great Wall because they're all going to go to the capital. She notices on 252 that the women of these pairs have higher spirit pressures, that their spirit pressures feel stronger than their partners. Surprise does not ripple through the group. Oh, female pressures can be felt more acutely. Zhu Ying shrugs, kind of like how we have higher pain tolerance. In basically all balanced matches, the girl seems stronger by spirit sense alone. Really? My frown loosens. That's a thing? Oh boy, I'm sure that won't come up later. The male pilot for the Black Tortoise pair says that he's not getting on a hovercraft with two barbarians because Shimon and the White Tiger Girl are both Mongolians, which is really based because he is in fact a racist. The female partner says, "Sorry, so sorry," looking caught between staying to explain and going after him. He lost his family to a rogue raid. I scoff. As heated as the Han-Rogi conflict in the Ming province is, so much so that their temples train their monks in martial arts more than meditation, this is just ridiculous. But in Ming, those Rogdi would have been Mengu tribe, wouldn't they? I say these two are a zombie. Okay, so to clarify, the racism towards the Rogdi people, they do attack them. They do attack the Han Chinese and they kill them and they raid them. So I think all the racism directed towards them are fairly justified. It's like, oh, 99% of the Rogdi are raiders and they attack us and kill us. But like 1%, that one little tribe over there, they're actually peaceful. So it's wrong for you to be racist towards their entire ethnic group because some of them like kind of don't hate you. And yet the question is never raised, why don't the other Rogdi, if they truly want peace with the Han Chinese, attack the other Rogdi that raid the Han? How come that question is never raised? Why don't you police your own people if you truly want to live together in peace? Wu is a cunt and just scoffs, calls it ridiculous. This guy had his family killed by these Mongolians, and this is ridiculous. What a bitch. I'm sure, though, if it had been different and if it had been a female character and that female character said that her family had been killed by the Mongolians, somehow she would have been a little more sympathetic. That's just a feeling that I have. Oh, but on the way to the ceremony thing, they go to her parents' village for a shoot. It says that this has only been a month. I don't quite believe that. I don't know. Just like an insane amount of shit has happened in this 1 month, which I guess sort of makes sense, but it feels like hyper constrained. She says that none of this would have happened if her family had cherished their two daughters instead of selling them as concubine pilots. None of this would have occurred. Ziyung, the one female pilot that's kind of nice to her, tries to talk to her because Wu blew up at her whole family, and her mom gave her this doll to give to Wu. She holds out the doll, a baby blessing doll, the kind of thing mothers in our parts of the mountains make for their daughters before sending them off in marriage. The mom doesn't understand how pilot marriages work, but she hopes you'll get to have your own children soon. I gawk at the faded, puffed-up fabric that once kept me warm in infancy. It's also wrong. Bearing a child is the last thing I want to do. My mother doesn't understand that. She doesn't understand me. Look, her mom is from this backward Chinese village where binding your daughter's feet is completely natural. She's in an abusive relationship where her husband screams and beats her. She's literally doing the best that she can. Is this like ideal for her daughter and exactly what her daughter needs? No, but she doesn't really have a lot of power or influence, and she's just trying to do her best. And Wu just isn't really willing to meet her halfway, even though like she understands all this stuff about the patriarchy, and no other women in this entire book have any ideas remotely resembling hers. Not really. It's just about her, and she's so special, and only she really sees things how they should be. I think her mom is doing her best here, and she doesn't really care, and she's not super empathetic. She like vaguely tries, but not really. Also, this doll thing, I don't think it appears again. I don't think it was mentioned in book 2 at all. And and also in the remainder of book 1. So it's just sort of forgotten. I feel like this could have been a decent memento from her mom to hold on to. But White Pill, why would she need a memento of her mother? Surely her mother is still alive in book 2. We'll get there. She debates having her family move to the capital, which she could do now. Doesn't want to at first, but she won't doom her mother out of her pettiness. The tiger chick also gives her some advice and says that you really shouldn't forgive people. You should be kind of a harsh, cruel person because that's just how the world is. Then we have the crowning ceremony in the Capitol. It kind of feels like Hunger Games. There's so much detail about what everyone's wearing, what they all look like. And yeah, it really did feel like the Hunger Games. I don't know how much damage the Hunger Games had on young women, but I think it was as extensive, if not more extensive, than Harry Potter. And I did read the Hunger Games like years and years ago. I thought they were okay, not great, but it seemed to be like really big with young women. Anyways, she thinks that her only real redemption can come from overhauling the pilot system before those girls get old enough to enlist. I don't know how yet, but I will surely have power I can leverage after coming back glorious from the counterattack, because they're going to try to retake the province that they lost 200 years ago in this huge counterattack. She is now seducing Shimon. It's taking some time. Shimon is kind of gay too when asking about Yizzy. Super gay. Like, gay guys wear diapers. It's gross. It's fucking gross, dude. I don't know why women like fetishize that shit so much. Like, literal shit sometimes. Oh, and she talks about Shimon being attracted to Yizzy. I don't know if Shimon would be comfortable expressing it, though. In my village, it would mark him as a target for heated gossip for sure. When Yizzy and I were chatting in bed about this a few nights ago, he said city folk don't care as much, but he's rich and from the capital. He has it a lot easier than most people. Look, I don't know all the culture for ancient China and all that stuff, but okay, you have bound feet for women, you have this hyper patriarchal society, but they're accepting of gays. He would be the target of heated gossip. I think he would maybe be stoned to death. And that's not really just a Christian thing. Most societies would kill gay men and gay women. Maybe it occurred on some level, but not really. Ancient Greece, not super tolerant. Again, there was maybe some tolerance to some degree, but they did kill gay people in ancient Greece. They did torture them in certain ways. I think it was probably similar to China. Do I think that, yeah, there were some gay people, but I don't think it would have been really open about it. Like, all this kind of leftist feminist revisions of history, and actually this society was super pro-gay. I doubt it. Like, maybe you had some pedophiles and they would rape young children that they castrated, like eunuchs. But yeah, I don't think it would be like open. I don't think if you were in a little mountain village and you were having sex with a guy, that everyone would just be like, ah ha ha, totally fine. I don't buy it. Shimon says you can't cheat on him. Cheating is deception. He and I have talked about this. He's secure enough to know it's not a competition, that any feelings I have for you don't cancel the ones I have for him. He's okay with however close you and I get. More weird bullshit. I don't know if this is the author projecting because she got cheated on in a relationship and she actually said, actually, this is really based and I'm really mature and secure. No, you're not. That's like the height of insecurity. You're allowing your partner to cheat on you because you're worried about them leaving them and being alone. That's not security. That's really fucked up. Okay, she's having sex with the muscle-bound bad boy with all the scars who's also a male feminist and really hot and right, all that. She says this at the bottom of 275, and it's really fucked up, and it definitely ties into the author is on the edge of being like a female to male, one of those people. So they're having sex, right? I gape in awe at the landscape of muscles and scars across his torso. I wish I had his power. I wish I was him. The was is italicized. I wish I was him. Boys, 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 boys.
I'd fuck you so.
This is some real troon shit. This is some real troon shit. Very detailed scene here that wasn't here for the rich boy when she was having sex with him. I want to be him. I want his power. And you have this male character that you desire to be that's about to have sex with Wu Zetian, your self-insert character. So you're imagining this guy that's about to fuck you and your self-insert, and you want to be that guy fucking yourself. If a man wrote it, we'd call that guy a tranny. I'm just saying. It's weird and creepy. I thought like there's going to be some cringy feminist stuff I can laugh at and just like bad mecha crap and some Chinese mythology. I wasn't really expecting the female to male tranny shit. I actually wasn't. And she gets to see this dream that Shimon has of Wendy, who was this female partner that he really liked and thought he was a part of a balanced set with her, but he actually killed her in battle. And from there, he just ended up killing a lot of women in battle. They start questioning this, thinking that this doesn't really make sense. They think that maybe the army is killing girls on purpose and they don't have as many balanced matches as they should. Like, balanced matches are super, super rare. Why is this? And they think the army is somehow manipulating things to have less balanced sets. We magically cut to them getting to An Lushan. No soldiers stop them. How did they get there? They talk about Yizzy like giving them some people sleeping pills earlier, or maybe it was Shimon. But this is a pretty important guy for the sages, and there's no cameras, there's no additional guards, nothing. Just these plucky teenagers managed to walk up to An Lushan and capture him. So they have him tied to this table and they are torturing him. He reveals that a girl's spirit pressure is actively dampened in a chrysalis. Balanced set that we think are balanced aren't really balanced. The girls in reality are far stronger than the men. It's done to make sure that the boys survive in battle. So I'm a feminist, hear me roar. All of the women in these balanced sets are actually the dominant partners. Whoa. And this is horrible. They're torturing the only good character in the book, and I feel so bad. No one bursts in to save An Lushan. We have this gay little speech on 290. You know what I think I say? I think this whole concept of women being docile and obedient is nothing but wishful thinking. Or why would you put so much effort into lying to us, into crippling our bodies, into coercing us with made-up morals you claim are sacred? You insecure men, you're afraid. You can force us into compliance, but deep down, you know you can't force us to truly love and respect you. And without love and respect, there will always be a seed of hatred and resistance. Growing, festering, waiting. No, it's not the patriarchy. It's just biology that has put women in these positions. Let's say tomorrow that all women declare war on men and they start actively trying to hunt and kill men, and men fought back. Women lose, period, across the board. It's not close, it's not close, it's not close. Women are obedient because they have to be, because they have physical limitations. And there's two Neanderthals, one man, one woman. A male Neanderthal got angry and he had a rock and he was going to bash the woman's head in. The woman would try to calm the man down, try to appease him because she wouldn't be able to win in a physical fight against him. And I think that's probably reality, that women are coded to be more obedient because there is the reality of men being able to inflict violence and women basically always losing a violent encounter with a man. That's nature. That's not men constructing, the biology and rewriting the DNA and the genes to make it this way. That's just how it happened. So I don't know. She's angry at nature and biology itself. Oh, and they recorded all this. They plan on broadcasting the truth to all of China, and this will hopefully shock the system and make things better for women. And the offensive begins. They go beyond the Great Wall, and humans haven't really been out here for 200 years. And it seems like the Hunduns take care not to destroy the environment. They created steps for them to walk through, like a forest, right? And all the Hunduns walk through these steps in the forest so they don't destroy a bunch of trees. So it seems like they care about the world more than the humans do. There are some Mongolian nomads out there. One of them has a scroll. They can't really understand each other because, they have different dialects over the course of 200 years. They are asking, can you cure the emperor pilot that got sick 200 years ago? There are some giant Hunduns here, and they're fighting at like this volcano. They call the humans the scourge of the universe, and they do manage to kill one of the giant ones. But once they do, there's still another giant one to defeat and a bunch of other Hunduns. The black tortoise is attacking the vermilion bird. It turns out that the strategists were never going to let them live this battle. White Tiger is helping them, but it's looking really bad for the bird. So Shimon ejects Wu from the bird, and she like meets up with this nomad, and this nomad woman is taking them to try to wake up the emperor to save the day. They ride in this underground tunnel where these other nomads have lived here for this long. And she refers to this woman as a stunning, unbound woman. And I just felt that that was stunning. So the golden dragon, which is the giant chrysalis that the pilot king from 200 centuries ago, is actually here in this volcano, and the emperor is inside. The emperor is, in fact, not a woman. I was actually shocked by this. I thought this would be something that the sages lied about to fuel the patriarchy or whatever. But she has this cure for the emperor who fell sick to some basic disease that they have the vaccine for now. And they're going to pilot the golden dragon. She makes the emperor sit in the woman's seat, and she says, "It's just a change of seat, yet everything feels different. For a moment, I feel distinctly male," or what's supposed to mean to be male. Male, female, it doesn't matter when piloting. This desire to be a man, this desire to not be a woman, it's there again. We have a long dream sequence with Shimon's dreams. During the battle, she speaks the truth. She also destroys a bunch of radio trucks that would have transmitted her going rogue back to the rest of China. So she kills everyone who was working on those trucks. So I don't know, they're just a bunch of men and they're just doing their jobs, but they deserve to die, obviously. That's nice. She confronts the tortoise and the two pilots there. The army threatened to murder their children. That's why they did it. She then murders the two in the tortoise. She can't empathize with a mother doing this for her children. She can't empathize with what she wished her own mother would do / had done for her. This isn't super touched upon. It is a little bit in book 2, but ultimately, isn't she wishing that her own mother stood up for her big sister and for herself and took some risks, but her mother didn't, and she always has resented her for it? And now we have a mom who has done this for her children, but she's just killed. And isn't this woman here, isn't she like not fully free in like feminist thinking because she is in the system of patriarchy and she's just doing what she must to survive? They are now flying to the capital. Her and the emperor. Shimon is dead. He's 100% dead. And they destroyed a watchtower on the way. She declares herself empress on page 339. Her parents are actually here, and they are surrounded by a bunch of soldiers. The sages are here, and they're holding a microphone to her mother's mouth. Her father snatches the microphone. "Please," he weeps, "pushing my brother Daylong out of the huddle of people. Punish us, not him. Let him go. He's your brother." Something shatters inside me. I watch in a daze as Daylong sobs harder, then stumbles back and drops between our parents again. They cry out, trying to push him away towards some illusion of safety from his evil sister trying to take over the capital in a giant metal dragon. So this is the capacity they had all along. This is what they would do for their son, while they sold me and big sister without batting an eye. These people will forever be used against me if I don't relinquish them in this moment. She says, "You're in my way," and she crushes the entire palace with the dragon's claws. She murders her entire family and the sages in one go. There's 100% some issues here, specifically about them wanting to save the brother and spare the brother, and they don't give a fuck about her. I guarantee Xeron has a brother, and there's some fucked up shit there within the family. What are family events like at Xeron's house? Like holidays, birthdays, anniversaries, whenever the whole family gets together, are they happy? Are they pleasant? I want to know. oh, Ziren, we're so happy about your book. And in your book, your self-insert character murders their entire family and definitely doesn't have issues with her brother. Wow, that's fun. Yizi's dad shows up in a helicopter. He's trying to negotiate with Wu. He wants to be made regent, and he also threatens to blackmail her with the video when he made her strip naked and read out their contract. Yizi murders his father with a key blast here and now. So, boys, what has occurred? What has happened in this book? Shimon murdered his own father and he also murdered his own brother. That's specific, which is important as well. Specifically, he kills two of his brothers and the dad, and our author has expressed a desire to be Shimon. But anyways, letting that go. One of our three murdered their own father. Then we have Yizi here, murders his own father. We have Wu Zetian moments ago murdering the mother, the brother, her entire family, and yes, the father. All three of our not protagonists but main characters murder their own fathers. We got some problems there. We have some very, very big problems there in the home. Then we have basically the epilogue. The gods took Shimon's body when no one was watching. There's also this huge reveal from Yizi. We're not on planet Earth. This is not ancient China that now has mechs and stuff. No, it's the Hundun's planet, and they are the natives on this planet. We get this message on 346 that says, Dear Wu Zetian, if you continue with your drastic actions, you will give us of the heavenly court no choice but to intervene. However, we recognize your power, so here's our offer. If you do our bidding as the sages did, we have ways to bring back what you've lost. But if you defy us or reveal the truth, you will lose everything. And there's this corpse floating in this tank, and this corpse is Shimon, so they're promising to restore Shimon to life if she acts as their puppet. So now we get to have this native and colonizer story too. Isn't that great? This is tacked on at the very end, and I don't really give a shit because I don't really care about any of our characters or the world, and the world's not really explored too deeply. And now it's like, oh my god, where are the aliens? Who gives a shit? A lot of issues here with the gender stuff, the female to male tranny. It's just not an engaging read for me. There was this desire throughout this book to kill her brother, to be better than her brother, to be a boy, because if she was a boy, then her parents would truly love her. And then we have this fulfilled desire of murdering her brother. You know what I mean? Like, you have the male to female trannies who really, really obsess over women and sexualize them, and they really want to become women. But there's also a lot of violence towards women when this mad desire to become this thing that they obviously can't become isn't fulfilled. And literally any woman walking down the street passes way more than them than they ever fucking could, and they're completely delusional. But when that delusion gets shattered, some of them turn to violence towards this thing that they're inherently jealous of. So we do have a playing out of that with the murder of the brother. We don't know how you make the chrysalises out of the Hundun husks. That's not really explained. It's said like, oh, that's something that the sages guard. Okay, I don't have a great sense of place. I know we're moving around a lot, but I guess I could have used a little more detail, a slowdown of the training sequence, I suppose. The delusional feminist attitude where women are only oppressed because of the patriarchy. Now, okay, in this world, when you have magic spirit pressure and women can have spirit pressure as high as men, okay, that's something. Women biologically in this world are still the only things that are able to give birth and to raise and nurture children. That's still a fundamental truth, a fact. Men can't do this. But there's a lot of pregnancy and child stuff in the second book, so we will get into that now, but some interesting moments, but I don't even know if like a crazy feminist would really like this shit. I don't think it's really well done. Maybe they like the dating two boys at once, so it's not a love triangle and the fake dating stuff, but I think it's just a a very bad, cringy, power fantasy, feminist girl boss thing. So there we go. Do I really care that Shimon dies? Not really. I didn't really feel anything. Again, I'm not the target audience here. I'm not a young woman. So, yeah, he didn't really mean much. But what character there was, I just didn't feel anything. I felt like everything with him was too rushed, so I didn't form a emotional attachment. Do I care about any of the romance or the sex in book one? Not really. The Shimon Yizzy stuff where they're like holding hands and are both maybe kind of gay, that was just kind of gross, but that just felt tacked on like something that the writer put in there to appease like having gay representation or whatever. It really seemed more like this was about her and her relationship with the two of these guys. And I don't really care about Yizzy. I don't care about Wu's relationship with him. I don't care about Wu's relationship with Shimon. So, yeah, the romance stuff as well. Not that I'm like really big on romance, but I don't mind it if it's like done well. I just don't think it was done well here. It's, oh no, Shimon died, I guess. And you don't have to listen to my takes on Iron Widow. We actually have a review here
with no internal logic and no emotional moments whatsoever. No emotional moments, no funny moments, and like nothing is earned, no character arc, just
Boys, I'm so happy to continue this with you. We have Heavenly Tyrant, the sequel to Iron Widow. We have even more radical feminism. We have communism. We still have the mechas. It's all ramped up, and yeah, I do believe it is worse than the first book. Shocking, I know. And of course, it's still a very, very Chinese book by our very, very Chinese author.
We are Siamese, if you please.
We have a prologue in our past with Qin Zhang. This is the emperor that Wu woke up towards the end of the last book. And we get a little insight into him. He roused the people up against the industrialists, the bankers, the landlords who subjugated them. He had a mentor, Mi Zhuan, leader of the Iron Widows in his day and age. So we're getting a little taste of what's to come. Oh, and this was a minor thing, but I wanted to say this at the start in terms of just like world building and stuff that just gets like picked up and tossed aside. So in the last book, we had those nomadic people that were awaiting the arrival of someone who would save the emperor, right? Are these people that were former citizens of the Xiao region and they just stuck around after the Hundans took over? Or are these like other like nomadic Mongolian people who live out here? But these people are seemingly able to live out in the wilds with the Hundans fairly close to them, and the Hundans don't bother them at all, right? So wow, what insights these people have after living out here for 200 years. From what I can tell, and it has been a few weeks since I've read these books, but no one talks about the nomads beyond the wall. We have no insights from them. There's no intrigue. There's no attempt by Wu or Qin Zhang or any character to speak to these people more, to learn more about the Hundans. Nothing. None at all. And to me, that's just another little example of shoddy world building, just kind of weak, where it's like you could, right, if you wanted to have your girl boss character that would actually be useful to the plot, you could have a female nomad come and talk about what life is like outside of the wall. I mean, what's going to happen to these people now that, you know, Huaxia, China, has retaken this province and they're going to, you know, reincorporate it? Are there going to be any difficulties there, cultural differences, you know, because these people have like kind of developed their own dialect, or it's harder to understand them. They have a new culture and all that. Are there any difficulties there? But that's not addressed at all, not in the slightest. Anyways, that's a little tangent. Now we'll get into the book. We have Quinn and Zaytan. They want to look for the gods who rule above them in the heavenly court. Quinn wanted to end the war against the Hunduns, and the gods didn't. And by end the war, I don't mean make peace with them. I mean he wanted to exterminate them, but the gods didn't want this. They wanted the Hunduns kept alive so that they could be harvested, and then, their husks could be attributed to the gods. They talk about some mythology that the Mongolian people have, that they might be criminals who were dropped off on this Hundun planet as, punishment, and that's why they're here, and there might be some truth there. And Wu doesn't have a really good plan right now, and Quinn is able to convince her to go back, form a better plan, and then they get an alert that a pair of Chrysalis pilots is on the way to confront them. They go to the province they just conquered. They meet up with the army there. Wu asks why the White Tiger helped them, and Tiger says that they helped because they knew that they would be next. If Wu and Shimin were going to be killed, then they felt they were likely. So they pick up a few of the chrysalises, and they're in the Yellow Dragon, which is like the super big chrysalis, so they're able to hold on to them, and then they fly back to the capital. The pilots they're confronting are really young. I think they're 13 and 14 years old. The boy pilot calls her a harlot, which was really based. The gods say not to kill the dragon pilots. They want to keep them around. They're not able to reason with them. Wu is not very good at piloting the Yellow Dragon, so Wu has to ask Quinn for help, and he does so, and he calls her little girl, and he makes a small, powerful form, like an ultimate form of the mecha, and wins the fight. And because he's able to do this, she cries and attacks him. She thinks that if this was possible, then maybe her family could have lived. She didn't have to use the dragon and just smash the entire palace. They could have used this smaller, more precise form to kill the sages and try to spare her family. She still says that ultimately this was still her choice, but I feel like this lessens it. It tries to put some more blame on Quinn, but she's ultimately taking responsibility, so I'm okay with it. And then we had this nightmare on page 44, and she sees the bodies of Shimin, her mother, her grandmother, you could have saved us, etc., etc. She has some regrets and nightmares throughout the book. And I think this stuff is done okay. She also thinks about the one tortoise pilot to the female one. She never really regrets murdering any male character. I guess Shimin, but that wasn't really her fault. She was totally exhausted after doing all that fighting and everything and trying to pilot the Yellow Dragon. So when she wakes up, Quinn has taken full control of the government. 200 years ago, he used to be the pilot emperor of all of China, so now he's back in full control. And to go along with her proclamation of declaring herself empress at the end of book 1, he decides that he's going to do a fake political marriage with Zaytan to make it look good, so people aren't questioning, well, why the hell did this chick declare herself empress if you were supposed to be in the dragon as well? And was the woman in control? Because that undermines your power. So women, in fact, do like fake dating. I don't know why it's so prevalent amongst them, but yes, they do, in fact, really like fake dating. Oh, and while she was asleep, he had a surgery performed on her, and this is to fix her feet. I think some disabled people, the crowd who cries out against ableism and such might be slightly offended. I do like it that she's getting her feet fixed, and at first it seems too easy, but she doesn't really walk until towards the end of the book. So I think it's paced okay, and she still will never walk perfectly because a lot of damage was done, but yeah, I think it's fine. Also, when she was asleep, he used lasers on her to get rid of her leg hair and arm hair, which was super based in Red Pill. This guy definitely speaks for all of us.
What do we want?
A girl worth fighting for.
And now, Wu Zaytan is a girl worth fighting for. So, when she wakes up, Quinn has taken full control of the government. because 200 years ago he used to be the pilot emperor of all of China. So now he's back in full control. And to go along with her proclamation of declaring herself empress at the end of book 1, he decides that he's going to do a fake political marriage with Zaytan to make it look good. So people aren't questioning, well, why the hell did this chick declare herself empress if you were supposed to be in the dragon as well? And was the woman in control? Because that undermines your power. So So she's recovering for a few weeks. She's resting. She's not really free to leave the new palace, which is the former residence of Yizzy's family. She's essentially bedridden for a few weeks, and it's kind of dull. Some people show up to give her some news, but it's a little sporadic. She laments ending up like this. Now, I know what you're thinking. White pill, I'm upset. It's been 57 pages, and we haven't gotten any new female-to-male tranny shit. But on page 57, we have something beautiful. And I brought it on myself. I was so desperate when I unleashed him that I didn't consider the danger he might pose. I almost laugh out loud at myself when I remember a proverb, to quench thirst with poison. I dragged my nails down my chest, leaving red streaks. What would it take for me to no longer be a woman? If I cut off my breasts? If I cut out my womb? I glanced around for something that could do the job, but whoever prepared the room swept it well. No sharp objects anywhere. Even if there were, and I mutilated myself with them, would it change anything? I'm a prisoner in this world, in this era, in this room, in this body. It never ends. It will never end. Jesus fucking Christ. Holy shit. Just the author projecting this desire for self-mutilation, to destroy herself, this absolute self-hatred, and this desire to be a man. Spoiler alert. Being a man isn't all hunky-dory. It's not like every day is rainbows and fucking sunshine. Some days really fucking suck. It's not fun. It just feels like, you have like your loser, pathetic NEET that's addicted to anime and pornography, and they decide that, hey, I'm 30 years old, I'm bald, I'm obese, I know, I'll be a woman, and then my life will be perfect, when in fact, their life will not be perfect. But they just have this delusion that the other half lives so well, and then, if they mutilate their body and don't become the opposite sex because that's impossible, then their life will somehow now be better. It's, yeah. Prisoner in this body. I am a prisoner in this body. Jesus. Keep sharp objects away from this chick. Keep little boys and sharp objects away from this woman. Stat. She reflects on her crushing the Palace of Sages. She probably did kill a lot of innocent government clerks, servants, women inside the building. And she says this: now that I've had some distance, I can't bring myself to hate Zi-Yung for accepting the secret task of killing me and Shimon. The sages held the real power, driving us both into impossible choices. And I actually like that. I think that's decent reflection for our character. It makes her more empathetic, She can realize that maybe it's not exactly a mistake because you're trying to save Shimon's life, but this other pilot was put in a impossible situation as well, so they were just doing what they had to do. Also, White Tiger says the sages were trying to get Quinn to kill her while she was resting, but he refused to. Tiger then apologizes for being so mean, saying that she didn't want the competition amongst female pilots because she used to be the best female pilot, and then she just showed up out of the blue. And with like less than a month of training, she's just really, really good. So good for Wu Zetian. She's just that good, ladies and gentlemen. She's just that good. While this guy has become emperor, he's not just an emperor. We're also doing a lot of really cool stuff too, like on page 65. Yizzy has done something very special where he has declared their family company nationalized and has handed their entire fortune to the state treasury, and they have His Majesty's favor for it. Wow, good. We're 61 pages in out of 548, and we're already trickling into the communism stuff. I can't wait. And if you want some great dialogue, on page 68, we have Wu speaking with her new servant, her new maid. And the maid is talking about how she got hired and what questions that the emperor asked of her. She says, if any of us knew much about laborism, what is that? Surprise flickers across her face. The belief that people deserve to reap the fruits of their own labor, that no one should exploit the labor of others for profit. Well, yeah, doesn't everyone believe that? Far from it, my lady. Much of the exploitation occurs in ways we don't think to question. For example, does your family own the land you farm? I wince at the mention of my family, but by the casual way she said it, I don't think she knows what I did to them. No, there's this family who owns half the mountain my village is on. We pay a portion of our harvest to them each year to use their land. But do your landlords ever contribute to the tilling? I snort. They live in the town down the mountain. I've never even seen them. So your family does all the labor on the land, yet your landlords receive a big portion of its yield without so much as setting foot on it? The nervousness leaves Wayner's voice as she speaks. Her back straightens. Her eyes meet mine. Does this not seem unfair, my lady? I blink at her before giving a slow shrug. They own the land. My ancestors were refugees from Zhao. They had to settle wherever they could. And then we go on to, do you have no desire to dismantle this system? And okay, she's totally shocked about the idea against rebelling against this capitalist system where you don't believe in landlords and such, and she's just like, oh my god, fish out of water. And yet she is such a insane, far left radical feminist, kind of already has this built into her about like rebelling against the norm, against the systems laid out in front of her. But I don't know, she's just, we have some like commie talking points, and I'll address some of them later on because I don't fully disagree with absolutely everything that's being said, but it's just written so fucking badly and it's so cringy where here's just Wayner or some other character just spouting all this stuff, and then Wu goes, oh my god, I had no idea. Wow. Laborism. Laborism is really cool. And yeah, maybe we'll bring up some of the negative aspects of living in an authoritarian communist regime, but we'll kind of hand wave those away as necessary for the change that they bring, and we won't really address communism in a meaningful way, but whatever, we'll get into it. Oh, and the Emperor isn't meeting with her, it just refuses to communicate with her, really, so she is refusing to eat until she gets her spirit armor back and is able to roam free. After that, we have the boy pilot who was in the dragon chrysalis that they fought in the capital city. He comes here to kill her and has already murdered her guards. The boy is 13 years old or he's 14, and Qin Zhang snaps the kid's finger off, and now she gets to wear spirit armor because he came and saved the day. Maybe I am stretching a little bit here. I'm willing to admit that this is perhaps a stretch for me, but we do have violence inflicted upon this relatively young man. He's 13, 14 years old. I don't know. It just feels like maybe our author, who's already expressed a desire to kind of harm male children, is sort of enjoying that. And it doesn't happen a lot. There's not really other examples of violence being done to male children. Not really, but I don't know. It feels a little bit like that. And I was wrong. And I made a prediction that this boy would be kept alive and would be like tortured, and there would be violence used against him throughout the book, and it would be done vicariously through Qin. But that doesn't really happen. Nothing else really happens to the boy, not like great punishment or stuff like that. So perhaps that's a bit of an overreach on my end. She then has a fight with Qin, who wants her to become more docile. We have a lecture on private versus public property on page 89. He says, private property is land, factories, utilities, infrastructure, resources needed by the whole of society but subject to the whims of private owners, giving them disproportionate and often unearned power. Things such as your clothes, furniture, jewelry, those are personal property. Those are possessions that give you no economic power over others, and I have no intention of taking away. That's not true. That's not what communists believe. That's what you're trying to soften here. Like nothing. You literally own nothing. Not the clothes, not the furniture, not the jewelry. I don't think anyone really has jewelry. None of that shit is yours. And just the idea of land. What does land mean? Does land mean a house? Because, we're trying to soften the image of communism in this book, but yes, it means you can't own a house. You can't own anything. Nothing is yours. You cannot have land for your family. It doesn't matter if you've lived somewhere for hundreds of years. It doesn't fucking matter. You own nothing. Oh, but white pill, surely it can't be that bad. It's not like they would destroy a bunch of nice standalone family dwellings where you have space in between you and your neighbors and force everyone to live in these shitty concrete block apartments. Surely that didn't happen ever. No, of course not. Communism means everyone is just super happy and everyone gets along, and it's wonderful. I mean, giving the government all the power in the world and then leaving yourself with no option to rebuke the government. Well, surely that would work out, and the government would definitely have your best interests at heart, right? Because it's not like a system that just wants to be efficient and doesn't care about happiness really wouldn't prioritize just putting people in these horrific little apartment blocks, and that would be that. Shrug your shoulders. And, well, we're all equals now. But, of course, we're not really equals. There's the inner party and the outer party. And the majority of people live in the outer party. But for the inner party, they have very nice lives. And, yes, that's every communist system that has ever existed. There's an inner party and there's an outer party. But that's not real communism, you'll say. And yet, whenever there's fascism, whenever there's National Socialism, those are always true and honest examples of those systems. But communism, that's never been tried. It's kind of cute for her to leave out the idea of housing and just, again, we say land, factories, utilities, infrastructure. What about housing? It's kind of weird that got left out, but I don't know any communist society that allowed someone to just own their house, just to stay in the house that they lived in. Again, I'm not super familiar with it, but I would think in more rural areas, maybe there would be a greater degree of freedom because you're away from the heavily controlled city centers, but I wouldn't still be too optimistic about that. So right now, this guy has declared himself emperor. They're supposed to have a fake marriage, but she really doesn't have any power. And now she's supposed to be subservient to this man, even though this man is enacting great social change. He's bringing communism to China. How lovely. But she's doing some studying right now so she can use her ki better and pilot mechs better so she can become as strong as Quinn, because Quinn is the best. She gets a little lecture from her communist maid here. The maid's grandfather gave a lot of support to worker unions, so the big corporations lobbied for the other sages to take him down on bogus charges. Oh, and she's supposed to meet up with Yizzy soon, which will be a big deal. And her servant is helping her to learn how to read because, Yizzy taught her some stuff, but she has basically no education. The question of Wu Zetian having female friendships, does she have friends in this book? She didn't have any in the last book. Not really. Again, the White Tiger is not hostile to her, but I wouldn't say that they're friends. Tiger is sort of just a bodyguard. I don't know. It doesn't really feel earned. That doesn't feel like actual friendship. I wouldn't say of Wayner, who acts more as just a communist lecturer for her. They're not particularly friends either. I still think the author doesn't really know how to write friendships too well, but whatever. So Wu is being pushed by Tiger in her wheelchair around the palace, and she's talking about the extended family of Yizzy. I heard from Wayner that many had to join the staff they used to boss around because the kitchens no longer cater to able-bodied adults who don't contribute labor. Really? Really? That's what your communist system's going to be like? Maybe I can get behind that, but what would happen to all the black people? Anyways. Don't work, don't eat. Sounds mighty racist to me. She finally gets to speak to Yizzy. It's just over 100 pages, slightly under 20% of our book. And finally, we get a conversation with Yizzy. We have this talk. Quinn knew that she was secretly meeting with Yizzy, and he allowed it. It also he explains the tattoos from the last book. His dad was in the criminal underworld. I guess this is the Chinese mafia. What is the Chinese mafia called? The Triad. So basically, his dad was in the Triad and like the leader of the Triad. His dad also pimped him out to other men in the Triad, so I guess that's why he's gay. So we do have an explanation at least. There you go. We got an explanation here. His brother is head of the criminal underworld now. Don't worry, the brother will never come up, and this will not really be addressed at all throughout this book. So I really don't know why Yizzy had to have this criminal connection. We don't really do anything with it. It could have been written out. It doesn't do much at all. But I guess he had to be a sweet boy on the surface. But actually, he's got this dark, wicked past. He's a wolf, and he's going to burst out of his cage. And then he's going to go on some fake dates with me. Wu goes to meet with Quinn before their wedding. And then on 112, we have this where they are reviving this old flag that used to be flown during Quinn's time 200 years ago. So the flag used to be a golden dragon head with against a red triangle on a black base. I don't know if these colors mean something special in China, and it was like the Chinese Communist Party, but with the red and the black, this just so happens to be Antifa colors that felt intentional. While we are talking about laborism, I think the author would be sympathetic at the very least to Antifa. Their sage from last time, the Yi Shima or whatever, the one guy that was nice to them, the other sage person, there were two at the start. He's never mentioned again. I don't know what the fuck happened to him. Maybe he just died. But he is supposed to act as their new envoy to the gods. Also, they recorded a conversation between her and White Tiger that Wu thought was secret. So the gods have amazing surveillance technology. They can't really plot against the gods out in the open, or even when they think they're being very quiet. So it's going to be very difficult to plan against them. And she had just been asking Tiger about, what do you think it means when we kill Hunduns and we can feel all these emotions when we kill them? Isn't that bizarre? White Tiger didn't really want to talk about it. And now, finally, we are at our wedding day. The gods tell her to behave and show her an image of Shimon, who is still in the tank, but, he has more of a torso now, like they're actually bringing him back to life. And, boys, this is something that actually legitimately shocked me. I know we're talking about laborism and all this shit, but this actually... my jaw didn't drop, I'm not gonna lie, but I was like, wow, holy shit, seriously? No fucking way. And this was a mainstream publisher. And of course, I don't really read anything that's published by the mainstream, but wow, holy shit. But I really just have one question for our author about what I'm about to read on page 127.
Why do you think you're in here, 981?
I am accused of being a traitor, a collaborator, and a counter-revolutionary.
It is not an accusation. You are a traitor, you are a collaborator, and you are a counter-revolutionary. Did you write this?
From the back of my wheelchair, he unlatches and passes me a ceremonial scythe he made from the yellow dragon, its dull, curved blade hovering several heads taller than me. It's meant to let me represent the rural peasant class, though I used a scythe only a few times in my life before my family learned not to allow me near sharp objects. I don't know if that bit is a reference to her cutting herself or that she would threaten members of her family with blades. I'm not sure, but anyways. I did more threshing and milling during our harvest. Quinn Zhang himself morphed out a sledgehammer to represent urban workers. Apparently, he used to work in a factory as a small boy before becoming a pilot, and he outlawed child labor after coming to power. The peasant empress and the worker emperor, that's what we're supposed to be. Literally a hammer and sickle. a hammer and fucking sickle. I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't fucking believe it. Totally shocked. Really blew me the fuck away. Oh, and everyone does a laborious salute where they snap their left fists up near their ears. I don't know if that's an actual communist thing or whatever. We're just being cute, but we do have that. Quinn goes into this long rant about how shitty things got when he wasn't in power and how upset he is. He talks about nationalizing banks, natural resources, and healthcare. This is getting a lot more specific than I expected. He didn't give this full speech during the rehearsal. I thought he was just a fan of killing rich people. What is this about canceling all medical and educational debt? He also bans foot binding and essentially stop fighting each other. We're going to attack the parasites. The parasites will not part with their extravagances willingly. They will resist any change to the old order they benefited from. So you must teach them that mercy is no longer theirs to give, but yours. Rise against the prophetizers, rise against the corrupt, rise against those who have everything in the name of those who have nothing. Rise, 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 rise. And he turns his sledgehammer into a sword, and whoa, everyone's blown away. Yeah, the free market is not good for the average person. It absolutely isn't. I think a more planned economy with some government intervention would be best. Telling everyone in America that they have to go to college, they have to get a degree if they want any decent job, when that isn't true. But then college has gotten more and more and more and more expensive, and student loans, you can't declare bankruptcy for them, and it's like swiping a fucking credit card. And from day one of your college journey, the interest is rolling. It's insane. It's fucked up. If we cared about young people and we wanted them to do well, we wouldn't allow this shit to happen. College should be much cheaper. It should be incredibly cheaper. Now, by that, I don't mean subsidizing colleges. I don't mean for them to get huge amounts of government money for these bloated, overpriced programs. I mean, starve them out. Let these institutions fail or force them to adapt so they're far cheaper and what they should be at, to where the average person, if they chose to go to college, could go to college and they wouldn't be horrifically bankrupt for it. It's insane, and no, usury isn't good for the average person. So look, I don't disagree with absolutely everything that she's saying, but ultimately communism isn't a good thing, and the fact that these people can't really point to that was a great society, that was a great communist society. And look, if communism is so amazing, we still have a few communist countries on the globe. I don't see a ton of people rushing to go join them for some reason. But that's not real communism. Of course, of course, of course. And while the ceremony is going well, everything looks good, Quinn ends up coughing up blood and collapsing. And luckily, there's a delay with the camera feed of a few seconds, so they put him while he's kind of dying on his throne, and she crowns herself to make it look good. And they were lucky enough to cut before he fell, and it looks good when the cameras come back on and she has been crowned. Turns out, since he was asleep for 200 years, he has no immunity to common diseases in our time, and the doctors recommend that he remains in isolation forever. This is terrible, but Wu's kind of happy, but also acknowledges that her position is extremely fragile and she's only really tolerated because she is now the empress, and if she didn't have Quinn here to protect her, then things would not go well for her. But while he has to live in isolation and not even touch her or be in the same room as her, they have like dream training sequences together, and he reveals that the place that the gods live is in fact a space station that goes around their planet. Ooh, and then we have the rebels broadcasting. They are supposed to be nationalists, I guess, more conservatives. I wouldn't say they're particularly fascist or anything like that. They just seem to be, hey, let's have some changes, but let's do reforms, and let's do it, without just cutting everyone's heads off and doing like a bunch of public executions and sham trials, kind of like that. And the rebels declare their support for the emperor, but they want reforms, not revolution. And the emperor says this on 166, labor is labor, whether manual or intellectual. Pitting them against one another only divides the masses and distracts them from the truth of their common struggle. Which isn't true. There's no difference between intellectual and physical labor. Yeah, that's horseshit. I do think physical laborers should be paid well. I don't think we should just try to replace them with foreigners and such. I do a more physical job, right? There's a difference, like a heart surgeon versus a guy that puts fries in the bag at McDonald's. Labor is labor. That rings a little fucking hollow. A small fraction of people can handle being a heart surgeon. A lot of people could put fries in a bag. A robot could put fries in a bag. It's just a gay little communist thing because, again, would you really want to go to school unless you were super passionate about being a doctor and such? And some people are, and I think that's great. But a lot of men take jobs like scientist, doctor, engineer, and they go to school for years and years and years to learn these specialized skills so that they can make a lot of money. This affords them a better lifestyle. This probably affords them a better looking wife, more security for their children. It makes sense that they go through all this trial and tribulation to have all this. But in commie world, if you're going to live in a shitty concrete block and everyone is equal, why the fuck would you want to be a doctor? Why wouldn't you take the easiest, dumbest labor job you could get, since your hard work doesn't matter? We're all equal comrades. Again, sure, some people, it's their passion to be a doctor. They don't care how much money they make. This is what they want to do. That's fine. But no, labor is not equal, and it shouldn't be considered equal. Then Wu has gone into this stadium where she's watching some body doubles of her and the emperor speaking to this huge crowd. They are denouncing the rebels. They talk about property and housing, the government bailing out the rich with tax, a recession. Yes, the federal government and Occupy Wall Street, the government did bail out the super rich, and that was really wrong. That was really fucked up. By the way, that was Barack Obama. That's just a fact. That was Barack Obama. He bailed out the super wealthy. Any comment on that from our author that our favorite black president was a corporate bootlicker there and really went to bat for the bankers? Is there any comment there? Yizzy comes out and he pledges loyalty to the crowd, and he also rejects his family name, which I'm not against. I mean, your dad did pimp you out to the triad and was a really evil, fucked up dude. But we talk on 171 here, very interesting. For too long, I watched my father and his associates live outside the law, amassing their fortunes by exploiting the common folk without mercy. The crimes of my bloodline run deep, too much for me to atone for in one lifetime, but I will certainly make an effort. And then he cuts his hair, and this is a really big deal in China, at least back then, because your hair was supposed to be like a sacred. It was supposed to be something from your parents, so to cut it was a really big deal. But what interesting language our author uses here. Crimes of a bloodline, he must atone. You will always be guilty of being racist. These people will never forgive you for the crime of being white. You can't give in. You can't give in. You can't give in for any of their bullshit. He says, other sons of criminals, I urge you to join me before it's too late. So these people haven't committed a crime. They're simply born into criminal families and they are guilty. And sure, you average white person, you might not be a racist. You might not have done anything racist, but you are in fact guilty. I have a clip here from our good author Ziran, so I will play this from one of her videos. This is about one being unconsciously racist.
If you are more concerned at being called racist than racism itself, that is an active hindrance to dismantling racism. I recently had an experience where I explained in detail to someone, a white person, exactly why I felt they were failing me a person of color. And their response to it was, oh, I feel like you're gaslighting me by making it about race. Now, I know this person did not do any of it out of a conscious malice. They were not looking at me like, oh, I'm not going to take you seriously because you are Chinese. But the fact is that they refused to defend me against a fellow white person who was attacking me, and therefore they reinforced the power structure where white people can get away with so much while people of color are constantly expected to take the high road.
And what if one was in fact consciously racist? What happens then? What if one was knowingly racist and they enjoyed it and thought it was great? We then have literal communist show trials where they bring people on stage and execute them. We have a woman whose husband was injured in this job. He inhaled like some toxic dust, and they have the owner here, and this woman takes a baton from like an army guy and starts just beating this dude down. Some part of me expects the soldiers to lunge for her because that's what happens when the powerless strike against the powerful. Ooh, deep. So this is just non-white on white crime. I know we're all in China and it's, about class. But communism, if you really broke it down, it's really a war on white people, and this is what this shit is. Yizzy has his own uncle murdered on stage. Will this be portrayed as going too far? This is just something I wrote in my notes, and yeah, sorta, not really, sorta, a little bit, and we will get there, but no, we're basically mostly okay with the excesses of the regime, but we pull back a little bit. She fears that they have unleashed something now that they can't control. She's then to meet with Yizzy in the tunnels far below the palace to discuss the action against the gods. One thing here which I didn't really understand, so it's like, okay, the gods can see and hear everything through all technology because they get their technology from the gods. Okay, that's all well and good. Why can't they write shit down, like just on paper, and have no electronic devices and communicate in that way? Why do they have to go so far underground? But whatever, I guess maybe if they had a super powerful drone, which they probably do, they could like see it, so you have to go that far down, so whatever. And on 183, she reflects on kissing a girl in her village when she was 7 or 8 years old. Again, she kind of flirts with the idea of like bisexuality, but it's not really there. I don't know, it seems to be more of the female to male thing, and like wanting to become a guy or just wanting like two hot guys to fuck her. It's sort of a mix. It's odd. There's a lot of pressure for her to become pregnant and to give birth to an heir, so she doesn't really want to do that and make herself weak, and she wants to join the war front and to be seen doing that and build up her own power base free of the emperor. So she's allowed to join the war effort and have a male pilot with her as long as the man is castrated. And she's absolutely totally opposed to having children, even though that would cement her place firmly. The real life Wu Zetian was a mother to 2 emperors, but this one will be childless because kids are bad, I guess. And I'll talk about the real life Wu Zetian at the very end. Again, it's like you want your girl boss female character, but you also want like this alt history thing, which goes against what women actually did to hold and maintain power, which typically was marrying a powerful man like a king, and then becoming pregnant by that king and giving birth to a male child. It would be like if you did a feminist revision of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn. I don't like Henry VIII. It would be like trying to write Anne Boleyn's story where Anne Boleyn was doing everything in her power to not get pregnant and then to not have a kid. It just feels bizarre and like wish fulfillment, and like, okay, there's like a lot of fucked up history in the past with women and how they're treated and such, but it just feels like cringe and gay history, right? Just like make your own thing. Like, yeah, that's what women had to do to like hold on. You could maybe find a handful of examples where women didn't have kids and they still held on to power, but for like 99% of them, if there was an influential woman He was probably having children. To find a pilot for her, they decide that they're going to go to prison. And then on 194, we do get joined by Yizzy's older sister, who her name is Tai Ping. She is wearing male robes, and of course, she's the super genius. She also knows the communist servant who's teaching Wu to read on 195. They know each other from some lesbian club. Apparently, they did like jello shots off each other. There you go. We have our super special math genius who's also a lesbian, and our communist servant is also a lesbian. Very cool, very cool. And they're riding through this area, and Taiping says, I heard there was a lot of looting and killing around here last night. Wenyer frowns. Nobody was killed. Nobody was killed? Taiping's attention whirls around. There are a lot of people determined to make the demonstration sound worse than they were, Miss Gao. It's what they always do to discredit protests. I'd be careful about where you're getting your information from. Yes, things got messy, but ultimately anyone who can afford an entire servant-filled estate in West Cheong is definitely involved in some exploitative business. You know, maybe someone else, not me, because I do really like our author, but someone else might say our author is a Black Lives Matter loving cunt. Probably some little rich girl, and she should shut her fucking mouth about things being... It's just property, bro, but... Me, working class, if somebody came by and slashed my tires or just fucked my car up or just stole it, and then I had to figure out transportation to get to my job because I do work every day to support myself, well, ... it's just property. And I mean, as long as we're only attacking the super rich, and look, yeah, I don't give a fuck about Bill Gates. I don't care if Bill Gates is burglarized or anything like that. Ultimately, when you're dealing with the bottom of society, junkies, homeless people, just worthless pieces of shit, welfare leeches, for them, they don't have to attack a Bill Gates, and they're not going to attack a Bill Gates. They're going to attack whatever's closest to them, and just some person who works a normal job and, you know, maybe they have a house or an apartment and a car. That's just, you know, that is them eating the rich. To them, that's the rich. And I hate this author so fucking much. Just this delusion that like the mob would only attack the guilty, you know, and yeah, there's some minor criticisms of communism later on, but in reality, they'll attack anybody, like anybody, and they definitely hurt the working poor a lot more than they hurt the rich. Just stupid. Rich girl, lesbian, math genius asks, if no one's allowed to get richer than anyone else, how would society advance? What would motivate us to make better and better stuff like technology? The communist says most of the products developed by her parents' companies were done with government-subsidized research for military and surveillance purposes. So by researchers who weren't driven by profit. And also brings up how some tech companies aren't making their products last longer. They're making them function worse. So people will have to buy new products. It's always going to be in a loop. Okay, 1, the military industrial complex is in fact driven by profit. I know, shocker, I know. The government does want more weapons, and they want them to be pricey, and there's payouts between government contracts. But yes, you know, developing army shit is for profit. Absolutely, it is. Surveillance, you're gaining something out of that if you're spying on foreign targets or your own targets. There's going to be some people who design and create out of a love for it, but do most people really want to put all this effort and hard work in just to live in the same shitty accommodations as everyone else? But comrade, you have made the state a better place. That's not how humans actually work. We are profit motivated. And the commie bitch just strikes down all of her arguments, and it's very, very cringe. We are riding through the city. There are free rations for everyone now. Boo. which is terrible. One should not feed the poor. Oh, we also have the new worst line of the book. Wenyer says, sounding quite fed up with the amount of privilege in this carriage. Holy shit, that's a bad line. A little riot happens on the way to this prison. Maybe this innocent man is hurt. The crowd is attacking them. She starts to control the crowd by shouting out some communist slogans. There is self-awareness there. She's saying stuff like power to the laboring class, down with the old order, they need us, we don't need them, and they're essentially leading the crowd to this prison so this man can be investigated once they get to the prison. She's doing this to build up her own reputation, but also to keep this man safe. Maybe he is innocent and the people are in fact wrong. There is self-awareness here on the top of 206. Even if Qin Zheng were fine and we took out all the rich and powerful, what's next? The common people work together and provide for each other and live in harmony ever after? No fucking way. Yeah, that's not how people function. That's not how humans have ever functioned, ever, at any point in human history. Yeah, there was more of a collectivism in a hunter-gatherer phase, and I don't love free market capitalism, and I know that these bankers and massive globalist corporations are my buddies, but communism certainly isn't my buddy. And I don't believe we get a conclusion here about whether or not this man was innocent or not. It's just we take him to the prison and we hand him over to the warden. So I don't know. It's just sort of brought up and then tossed aside. And then on 211, we are now looking at prisoners for her to have as a subservient male pilot for her. Our first prisoner is a student who did radio, newspaper articles, and speeches against the government. Like their version of the 2008 recession. Of course, he's this good-looking Antifa guy, and I just wondered, would she be challenged by having to pair up with an ugly pilot, for one, just an unattractive male that gives her the ick, or some guy who had committed crimes against women, oh wow, Wu Zetian, the guy you have to go with is an absolute piece of shit and he's not redeemable, but he's the only one. Can you swallow your pride here and do this difficult thing in order to accomplish your goals? Are you willing to go through with all this? Spoiler alert, no. The Antifa guy is also super smart, and he also agrees to be castrated if Wu will fight for the voiceless. He says that includes the prisoners here. No matter what they might have done, surely you can see how broken the system is, how it exists to punish the downtrodden and benefit the wealthy. You have to dismantle it. You have to. The other two prisoners, one of them was a robber that ended up murdering a store owner, but I thought there's no such thing as private property, comrade. Is that really a crime? He was merely alleviating property from petite bourgeois capitalist swine. So isn't that guy good? And the third guy was producing pornography of some kind, so whatever. Just have to dismantle it. It doesn't matter what they've done. Even violence against women or rape, just let it go. Just let these people go. Prison is just inherently oppressive. White pill media, in fact, believes that people can't really be redeemed. Really, I think some people are maybe capable of change, but murder, rape, things of that nature, you just kill them. Torture them to death if you want, but just kill them and do it swiftly. Your Highness, if you're there, Di Renji lifts his eyes. I am willing to endure mutilation to become your co-pilot, but you must promise me one thing, that you'll fight for the rest of the voiceless as hard as you fight for yourself. That includes the prisoners here. No matter what they might have done, surely you can see how broken the system is. How it exists to punish the downtrodden and benefit the wealthy. You have to dismantle it. You have to.
Of the truth, this has gone on long enough. Make an example of this bungler. The council demands it.
They decide to castrate two of the guys, surprisingly the attractive communist guy, and then the guy who committed the robberies, not the guy that gave her the ick. That guy, he did not get his penis cut off. Speaking of that, have you ever thought that George R.R. Martin is like a dumb fat fuck? Like he's actually kind of a bad writer. I know that's not necessarily a hot take. A lot of people criticize him, but for all the bullshit about Aragon's tax policy, the Unsullied in Game of Thrones, Daenerys Targaryen's castrated army, they literally don't make any fucking sense. You have a bunch of guys who, when they were young boys, were castrated. When you castrate a dog, it's to make, well, one, to stop them from reproducing, but two, it's to calm them down. It's to make them less excited. You do the same thing to bulls or to any other animal that you're castrating, right? It lowers their testosterone, makes them less aggressive, it makes them less male. So if you have an entire army of boys with very low T, that's a very shitty army, and it doesn't matter how well they train, because don't they also, like, if they're castrated, they develop less muscle? So a little tangent, but the Unsullied in Game of Thrones, they really, really don't make sense. What about Aragon's tax policy? What about an army of dickless men with low T? We had this super weird take on 215. It's so weird when I think about it, how people act like genitals are all that matter when it comes to being male or female. What's fundamentally changed about Di, Renji, and Feng Xiaobo besides their ability to have children or P standing up? Well, as I just said, they do have lower testosterone, and yes, this will affect them for the rest of their lives. They still have the same minds, same appearances, and same attitudes and ideas shaped by their upbringing as men. Anyone who meets them after this without knowing what happened would continue to treat them like men. So how can it be said that their masculinity was dependent on those organs they no longer have? If it were that simple to shed one's gender, I would have stabbed myself in the womb long ago. I know our author isn't saying this. I know she's fucking not. But could we not take these words and directly apply them to trannies and say that no matter what, if someone was just walking down the street and saw you, they would immediately pin you as the gender that you were born as, a man or a woman? Nothing has fundamentally changed about you despite you calling yourself a different fucking pronoun, right? What? That's not what our author means. Of course, that's not what she means. But it's this weird take about, like, okay, they got their dicks cut off and ... It's obviously men and women are more than just their genitals, but are their genitals a fundamental part of them? Yeah, of course they are. Of course they really do matter. And for this psycho cunt talking about how much she wants to mutilate themselves, it's just, you're completely downplaying the issue. If it was a bunch of women and they were getting like their wombs removed or something like that so they can no longer have sex or whatever, I'm sure you would be a little more empathetic. I'm sure you would care a little bit more. But yeah, it's a part of them. It's like having any part of your body removed. If someone just, I don't know. I mean, if you had an ear removed, can you still hear, right? So, I mean, what's the big deal? ... You can still hear, or cut off some fingers or toes or whatever. It's a part of your body. It shouldn't be removed. It shouldn't be mutilated. How can it be said their masculinity was dependent on those organs they no longer have? A lot of things, but yeah, the penis is important. It's there, it's important, it's a part of them. It's just crazy rambling from some desperate female to male shit. And also, just continuing the motif, she does talk about wanting to stab herself in the womb to no longer be a woman. On 216, there was a dark, venomous time in my life when I would have felt triumphant about this turn of events. Finally, boys getting mutilated to serve a girl instead of the other way around. Yet no sense of victory stirs in me. Their pain doesn't alleviate mine or that of any other girls. I'm not going to lose much sleep over it when Day Rinji and Feng Xiaobo both agreed to the procedure in exchange for getting out of the Chanlo, but it doesn't feel productive either. It's just another show of Quinn Zhang's ownership of me intended to emphasize his boundaries, not mine. What a nice woman. I assume this is the author speaking in her own voice, which she does often, about the seething hatred, the desire to see boys hurt, And yeah, look, I get it. There are guys out there that are really fucking sick and they would like to see women and girls hurt. And that's fucked up. The majority of men do not defend that position. And probably, to be fair, the majority of women don't defend this position either, where they want to see boys mutilated and killed. But just for the author to speak about this, like, holy shit, what the fuck is wrong with you, fucking psycho? God damn, felt triumphant. Felt triumphant. She's doing some more training with Quinn. Quinn doesn't want to have kids, which is just kind of odd. Well, for any man, right? And I know he's like a communist, so maybe that's a part of it. Because he doesn't even want his kids to inherit the title of emperor, but yeah, I would say for most humans, like throughout all of time, then the past few decades specifically, where there's this huge anti-natalist push. But yeah, for 99.999% of human history, people wanted to have kids, people wanted to have families. They're talking about guns on 222. He says, in an ideal world, I would confiscate and destroy them all. But since there is no realistic possibility of keeping these weapons entirely out of the hands of counter-revolutionaries, I'd rather the masses have the capacity to fight back. Yeah, I would totally get rid of all the guns, but first we have to give all the guns to Antifa so we can kill everyone that doesn't agree with the Great Leap Forward. But anyways, yeah, I'm a peaceful guy. And not that the book is saying that he's peaceful or anything like that, but that's, like, guns are like really, really bad unless we have a bunch of people we need to kill. Then guns are good. And then when we've killed all those people, we then have a police state to control the population and prevent them from like leaving the country or anything like that. But everyone likes communism. He also talks about in his day they used to string industrialists from lampposts, and now that we're in the future, 200 years in the future, we have better tech, so we don't have to have bread lines anymore, and we can use this better tech to really pull off the communist utopia this time, and it'll definitely for sure happen now. Wow, isn't that just amazing? And then on 228, we had something that felt like she was addressing criticism of her writing, like the first book. She has gone to the wall to get the nine-tailed fox chrysalis, the pilot that she killed in the first book. That's going to be her chrysalis when she's supporting the war effort. So she goes there, she meets with Auntie Doe, the senior maidservant who supervised my spirit pressure test before letting Yang Guang carry me away. She winces at the memory of how she yelled at that one girl. She shouldn't have blown up at her like that. What did it accomplish? At the same time, I'm glad I never made friends with those girls. Any girl that she had developed a friendship with would have ended up as a hostage. And she reflects more on the black tortoise and her mom and grandma. If they were out of that stifling environment, then perhaps, she could have developed a better relationship with her. Just reflecting on the women that she killed, not having any female friends in the first book, it felt a little, and just addressing her critics. On 235, she's at the border, she is training White Tiger, so through the dream stuff with the Emperor, she gets to learn all this pilot training stuff. Once she has it with the Emperor, she can then dream with White Tiger. White Tiger can then dream with another pilot, and so on and so forth. They can pass all this training around to each other. All the previous balanced matches are actually fake. Women are just stronger, but they can't correct the chrysalises right now because the sets are already pretty rare, so we're just keeping them as is. But yes, in every balanced set, the woman is actually the dominant partner. Whoa. Studying with her communist maid, she tells me women used to be able to go to universities, but after reactionaries blamed the loss of, quote, traditional values, unquote, for the fall of Zhao, the government found excuses to expel them from higher level schools. Gangs then went around attacking any woman who didn't act as they saw fit, from those walking alone on the streets to those who showed too much skin to those not having bound feet. Wayner shows me grainy photos of corpses dumped naked in the streets with their breasts cut off. My brain can't even process the images in a way that summons rage. I just feel empty, mourning the destruction of a world I never knew. She can't even process these images of dead women with their breasts cut off. Yet, we do downplay men being castrated and having their genitalia removed. I mean, why is that a big deal? Did these women stop being women, that when they got their breasts cut off? Or is this a innate part of themselves? And removing any piece of your body is, of course, going to be traumatic. But whatever, we're being a little ironic. They do win the battle, but it's kind of close. And then the next day, Quinn says that girls can now be pilots and be brought into the army. Also, there is mandatory 1-year military conscription for men and women. She travels back to the Emperor, who wants her to read a book on laborism. There's this glass divider between them as they sleep in beds, so he has to, not be in contact with anyone physically anymore because of his immune system. We have a dream sequence with the Emperor and how he grew up on 258. And he speaks to her by saying, "Read this and understand the necessity of revolution. It is not state borders that divide us, but class, owners and workers. Exploiters and the exploited. With you on our side, we can win." And it's just like commie playbook shit about making speeches in factories in disguise, talking in secret with other pilots. Really? Borders don't divide us? Borders don't matter? That's interesting. I wonder if, I can't think of any example where borders matter. There's nothing that comes to mind when I think about leftists and caring about borders all of a sudden, even though America shouldn't have strong borders. Was there something in, like Eastern Europe about like one country, like crossing the borders of another country? Did state borders matter then? I don't know. I can't even remember. It's so out of mind now. And then like there's like this one country in the Middle East, and a lot of wars are started because of them and for them, and they do a lot of expansion. Recently, I don't know, like, does anyone else remember this? Am I just talking out my ass here? But I feel like there was like an incident, like a really small incident, like a super small incident that ended, and not much really came of it, but like one country like went into another country and like they violated their borders. Nah, I can't think of anything either. It's just class, man. If you just got rid of class, dude, then everyone would get along. Like Pakistan and India and just everyone would just sing and hold hands and everything would be great. Like, borders don't divide us. Oh boy. She's traveling with Yizzy and they comment on some like revolutionary people wearing yellow sashes. They're driving some people to this jail so they can be put on trial, which is really just a show trial. Oh, and she's also tracking down the woman who got Shimon's other kidney, because since he was a prisoner, they take one of your kidneys. So she's going to this woman who has his kidney and secretly is like observing her. And this is so she can pinpoint Shimon's like key signature. So then when they attack the Heavenly Courts, they'll be able to find Shimon inside the space station. But she says here, "I might have joined this rally to get more clout." Clout doesn't work. That's not a good word. You can't use it here. It doesn't fit in this book. There's too many modern day slang. And I think it can be a little loose. It doesn't have to be perfect, but clout, that doesn't work. I don't know. They do have social media, but it still feels like shitty and not very good. So whatever. I'm going to die on that hill. They observe the woman who got Shimon's kidney. They just get close to her. Some of the people there are giving commie speeches, and then there's some news from the rebels. Kin, in response to this, is forming a police state of citizens spying on each other. And there's a fight with Quinn about needing her to be pregnant, and she doesn't want to be pregnant. She says, "What reality do you live in that mothers get to sit around and do nothing? They only get empty praise on how hard they suffer. Watch how quickly people turn on them when they're anything less than perfect and selfless. And what happens after I give birth, if it's a girl instead of a boy? Will you drown her with your whining and then force me to try again?" I think of the age difference between me and my little brother, not even 11 months. A conception before my mother healed from the way I tore her up as I came into existence. My father used to tell me over and over about how other families who shared the misfortune in quotes, of having 2 daughters in a row would drown the second in a bucket to scare off further female spirits, and how I should call myself lucky that he and my grandparents decided against doing the same. Okay, got a little thing here about her mother being torn up by pregnancy, and I feel like if you didn't have a abusive or a bad childhood, most people are neutral, or they do in fact want to have a family. I feel like the only people that are like super against having children or starting a family have to have something fucked up with them, and I think she definitely has. Also, again, we have her younger brother who isn't really mentioned at all, very, very briefly, and always in a negative context. There's never a single positive memory of the little brother. One does question if our author, in fact, has a younger brother that is just 11 months younger than her, and maybe there's some jealousy, anger, resentment. Maybe her parents favored the little brother just a little bit more or a lot more. But yes, it's there. But she is dead set against getting pregnant. She is completely against having a child, which her real life counterpart, her namesake, did give birth to children. We'll get to it. But they decide that she's going to fake a pregnancy, and then they will fake a miscarriage later on. On 279, she says, "If you put a baby in me for real, I can guarantee it won't make it to term." I snap, both to him and to the gods who are surely listening. Just the violent hatred towards children in general. And I don't know, if she gave birth to a daughter, she would probably still fuck her up. But legitimately, like, kind of concerned. I kind of hope this is someone who never reproduces. I really don't think she should, especially if she has a boy. I don't know if I should say she would, like, kill her male child in real life, but I think she is clearly mentally a little, right? She's a little... yeah, not the most stable, just with the female-to-male tranny shit, and there is this desire for violence against men. So probably for the best. Don't have any kids. I highly recommend you do whatever women do. I think they get their tubes tied. Go do that. Please. We can do a gay little Kickstarter. Asian male lives matter. We need to get this chick's tubes tied. Stat. She has a dream of her big sister. The Wu argues that women not drafted in the army will make them look weak. The sister asks her if she's just making a world just for her, and says the way to free women isn't by demanding they adapt to the traits men are praised for. Please remember that. Because despite feminists screeching and such, one, women aren't physically built like men. They don't have the same desires, the same proclivities and such. So it just forcing women into combat positions, assuming they're not piloting the super mechs, they're just weaker men, right? Just in that context, they're just inferior men at these physical trials, and for combat simply do less. So if you're constantly putting women in that position in direct competition with men, they're always going to lose, and there's going to be this violent resentment bubbling beneath the surface, which is probably what our author is going through. And of course, I don't believe the author believes what the big sister is saying here. Not at all. She definitely wants to compete with men, and she wants to beat them. She wants to humiliate them, and frankly, she wants to castrate them. They go check out Shimon's apartment, which has now been turned into a tourist trap, and about halfway through the book now, a little over halfway through, but really, not much has fucking happened. It's boring as shit. She starts to get Yizzy's lesbian super genius sister to start working on math equations about how they can, like, fly the yellow dragon at the heavenly court. And the commie maid and the math genius have started a lesbian relationship. Wu goes back to the frontier then to, fight off any Hunduns. They talk about guerrilla insurgency among the nationalists and how they also spread wild misinformation among the peasants, such as that we're forcing everyone to share everything down to their blankets and toothbrushes, or that we're no longer recognizing marriages and will mandate every woman to sleep around, particularly with Rogdi men. Nonsense like this is turning a concerning number of people towards Zhu Lang, the rebel guy, and the reactionaries. Sorry to dash any little faggot commies' dreams, but they'll make you share just about everything. You don't have personal property. That doesn't fucking exist. Everything belongs to the state. You own nothing. That's it. That's literally it. Maybe the toothbrush thing is a exaggeration, but that's something that's given by the state, and the state could decide to take it away from you if they wanted to. Same with clothing, same with everything. If they decide the apartment you and your family live in is too big for one family unit, now you're going to share it with a second family, or a third, or a fourth. That's how it goes. You're not allowed to have your own private little garden or anything like that. Maybe there's a communal garden for your apartment block, but nothing is truly yours, and it never will be. There's nothing to work for, there's nothing to build, because you can't own it. We have this bit on 317 with her castrated Antifa guy. He has spoken to the Emperor about rewriting their legal code. We ought to focus more on rehabilitation and prevention than punishment. Studies have shown that harsher sentencing does not reduce crime, improving people's material conditions does. Well, how do we fix the low IQ, low impulse control problem? How do we do that exactly? Is the best way to prevent crime to kick non-whites out of your country? The less non-white people you have, the less violent crime you have. How far do we take this? Rehabilitate. What are we rehabilitating from? How far does this go? Murder? Rape? Some guy that commits hundreds of misdemeanors and he constantly is let go so that he can harass and attack people on the street on a daily basis. Rampant drug addicts that shake people down for money, and then if people don't give them money, they turn violent. How much can we really rehabilitate? And what if someone doesn't believe in the communist dream? What if that person doesn't want to work? What if they are just a worthless, lazy piece of shit? Well, I guess we put them in a labor camp, which I'm not actually opposed to. Or we just shoot the homeless. I'm fine either way, but make them go. They must go. And we have the typhoon now, and there's this wall breach. So she's able to win out in the day, and one of the female Iron Widow pilots is able to help her, right, save the day and take out any Hunduns that made it through the wall. But they do all this. It looks like someone was messing around with her watchtower, so she didn't get the alert that a attack was happening, because other watchtowers with chrysalises did get the warning. They decide to make people hate her less. They spring a fake story that she's pregnant now. They go do some photo ops of her handing relief to devastated communities. People are a lot nicer to woo now that they think that she's pregnant. I convinced them the clump of cells allegedly growing in my uterus has compelled me to become an utterly different person. I do love the language here, clump of cells, but of course any Redditor soyjacking over some space satellite spotting 50 trillion miles away some bacteria, well, that's life. But that human baby growing in a woman, that's just a clump of cells. It's just slightly annoying, just like slightly. Like, was George Floyd a clump of cells? I guess he was more of a clump of fentanyl and counterfeit $20 bill, but yeah, there you go. She also describes it as, it's like I'm walking around with a giant bruise of defeat for the world to see. What a bizarre way to view motherhood and giving birth. Like, what is your relationship with your own fucking mother? Did you view your own mother as a loser, and her bringing you into the world as this giant bruise of defeat for the world to see? I'm not trying to play it up, but this is like from a deranged mind that's where you go when you think of women in general giving birth. That is a giant bruise of defeat. More dream shit with Quinn. So much happens in this book. It's like uninteresting fight at the wall, dream shit with Quinn. Communism, super interesting. He does dream kiss her. Ooh, spicy. And they're like having dream sex. And on 347, and she gets some of his memories where they talk about extracting some of Wu's eggs when she's asleep and then fertilizing the eggs with some of Quinn's sperm, and then they're putting the eggs in another woman so that woman can give birth to their baby, and that is actually what has happened. The gods apparently gave them an ultimatum. They really wanted this baby to happen. The woman is already pregnant by them. Ever trust Yizzy again. Yizzy is the one who proposed the plan and how they could do it. She's angry. She doesn't think that she can force this woman to get an abortion. She does say here that the best I can hope for is that she might miscarry. That's nice. What a nice thing to wish upon another woman. Look, this is a weird, fucked up thing where you were violated and, you know, they're creating a child without your consent. That's obviously really fucked up. But wishing a miscarriage on a woman, that doesn't sound super feminist to me. Maybe that's white pill just being a little cuck bitch, but no, that doesn't sound particularly feminist or girl power or women supporting women. That's a horrific thing to go through. She also says that maybe she would have gone along with their plan of, you know, artificial insemination if they had gone to her first, but they didn't do that, so she's just completely against it. Her having her cake and eating it too, where in reality, right, she would be forced to have a child with the emperor to keep her station. That would have been necessary for her to maintain her position and her power. But of course, not in our, like, girl boss feminist thing where, okay, there's going to be a kid and that kid's going to be born and that's my kid, but I don't have to actually be a mother. I don't have to put any effort in. That's just super. It's really, really good. And she's crying with the math genius chick, and the math genius says that, hey, I can take you to a club to cheer you up. There's a place like Club Lily. Gay people show up. It's not just for lesbians, but it's for men too, and those who like both of them or neither, those who'd rather shake off the gender imposed on them from birth. How exactly do you shake that off? Let's not get into it. And she says she would love to go on these clubs and that would just be great. They plan on attacking the heavenly court a month before the baby is due because they think the gods wouldn't think they would dare do anything with the baby on the way, so they're gonna try to have the element of surprise on their side. She's reflecting about what would happen if Quinn was gone and I was left as empress. Can I do what he has done for the people? The revolution is supposed to help them, of course. Everyone can breathe easy with basic levels of food, shelter, education, and healthcare provided for free. No, 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 no. None of this is free. Nothing is free. Nothing has ever been free. The roads you drive on are not free. They have to be maintained by people. These people must be compensated for their time, for their work. Public school. Well, I send my kids to public school. It's free. It's not fucking free. It's from tax dollars, right? Something has to support it. Free healthcare doesn't really exist. That's not how it is in Europe. You get taxed a shit ton living in Europe for healthcare, and their healthcare can be spotty. You know, it's not the best. I don't think the American system is perfect by any stretch, not at all. But Jesus Christ, just like the retard mental gymnastics to say that all this shit is free. It's just not. None of this is free. Not in a communist society, not in our society. And you're like, well, in communism, some people would fix the roads, other people would be teachers, and etc., you know, and it all would work out. Unless, of course, you had more people that were taking, like, if someone is putting food in a bowl, right, and then others just stick their hands in to take the food out, and then there's not enough people contributing, and there's too many takers, then, well, your little communist utopia doesn't fucking function, does it? And no, it doesn't function. And then on 365, she's giving this big speech about women, the higher poverty rates women face, the amount of their labor that goes unpaid, the number of them who get abused or killed by those who are supposed to love them. Because she's creating an organization called the Alliance, which is like this big feminist thing that's going to go all across the nation. Labor that goes unpaid. Okay, I guess like women taking care of children inside the home, women doing chores and stuff like that. Do husbands do nothing? Like maybe in your little straw man example, husbands do nothing. What about their unpaid labor? I'm sorry, should, the husband pay the wife $20 if she picks up the kids from school? Okay. What if the husband is working longer hours and it just makes more sense for the wife to pick up the kids? Does the wife have to give the husband $20 every time he picks up the kids? What about when he fixes something around the house? That's not what families are, right? That's not even, friends don't treat each other like that either. If everything is, hey man, I picked you up from your house so we can go to the bar. Can I have $20? That's not how it works. That's not a relationship. And yeah, you would want things to be more balanced of both parties assisting each other in raising a family and such. Yes, only women work. Only women put any effort towards childcare. Only women contribute to the home. It's just them. They do literally everything. And we're broadcasting this across the nation for charity. Wow, amazing. So moving. So incredibly moving. To raise money for her organization, this literally happens. This is what the author says in the book. Groups of women go around with rolling pins and staffs while campaigning for the Alliance in packs. And they're also renovating this building to be the Alliance's first official outpost. Many women show up in hard hats and neon vests, grime on their faces, but in high spirits. There are signs of construction everywhere. Fuck off. Fuck off. Fuck off. Fuck off. If you have women-only spaces, there are men-only spaces. You don't belong on a construction site. Get the fuck out. That's it. It's really just she wants a cock. She really wants a cock, and she wants to defeat men and castrate them and probably then rape them. That's what she wants. What woman could work at a construction yard and they're doing the physical labor? I don't mean driving a dump truck, and I guess maybe some women perform that task, but physically lifting and moving shit and working a jackhammer or whatever physical task you're doing, no, 99.99999% of women can't do it, and the small percent that maybe can do some of the physical shit would do a worse job than men. That's just a fact. This is stupid. This is so fucking stupid. Just give me a fucking break. Also, she's showing up in villages with better menstruation pads and also contraception and such. I'm not letting another woman be robbed of control over her body if I can help it. The laborist guys in the crowd attacks her and says that there shouldn't be a hierarchy. So even though we're communists and that's great, there shouldn't be an emperor or anything like that. Because if there wasn't an emperor protecting her ass, if she didn't have to rely on a strong man, then she would have had her head cut off by now. We have another amazing, beautiful scenario at our women's shelter, the Phoenix Outpost. This is on 376. This guy shows up demanding his wife, and then he reluctantly admits that he's hit his wife, but he only hit her because she refused to provide sex. And then he also tried to rape her. I'm not suggesting that the man is a good person. I'm not suggesting that at all. What I am saying is this is just a crappy straw man, and I'm sure scenarios like that exist, but it's just gay feminist power fantasy shit. The guy also says they're trying to make the women the oppressors now, and he's going for his gun, allegedly. Allegedly, he reached for his gun, and then Wu cuts his head off. And there's some confused applause. They are now hiring better security for the place, so they get a bunch of, bull dykes, literally, muscular lesbians. That's very specific in the book. They're getting, muscular lesbians to guard, Phoenix Outpost. Okay, I guess. I don't know any man that would actually lose a fight to one of them, but whatever. You would probably be better off hiring men to fight off other men, right? Like on the police force. If some big 6 foot, 200-pound dude was cornering you in a dark alley and you're calling the police and some 5'1", like 120 pounds or so woman shows up to take this guy on, how are you feeling about that situation? Or do you want like some huge guy as well from the police department and he's gonna beat this fucking guy to death? Whatever, moving on. Yeah, just cutting off the heads of all the straw men that you need to, Ziran. You're doing great. You're doing great. It was bullshit on 380. She's bringing her Antifa eunuch to the capital with her after her monthly battles at the frontier. No objections from noisy officials either. To them, the eunuch is no longer a man. It continues to perplex me. Are genitals all that makes a man to them? No, that's obviously not all that makes a man, and I don't believe that the guys in this book would believe that either. Now, again, they wouldn't view him necessarily as like a sexual threat, right? Because he can't really have sex. He could do some stuff, but not really sex in a typical fashion. But obviously, if a woman somehow had her vagina removed, I have no idea what that would look like. But if a woman had her breasts cut off, is she no longer a woman? She is clearly still a woman and is retarded to think otherwise. Yeah, having breasts, a vagina is a part of that, but no, she's still a woman. If she somehow lost all that, and if a man got castrated, yep, still a guy. Very simple. Things are getting more violent and chaotic in the streets with the reactionaries versus the revolution. The two women, the maid and the math genius, take the exams, and shockingly, I know this is shocking, but out of the entire nation of China, I know there's a civil war going on right now, but out of the entire nation that took the exams, they place third and fourth. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. I was on the edge of my fucking seat. Wow, I didn't think they would place that high. I don't think the author bothered to mention who got first and second place. I really want to believe it was two men. And not only two men, but two super misogynistic and sexist men that then decide to use their first and second places to ban women from taking the exam in the future. Very based. There's a group hug at the women's shelter, and then the secret police show up. They arrest the communist maid because her mom wrote this story. Again, we're trying to like hammer home that these people are friends. I don't think they really are. Like the maid is definitely in a servant position, right? So that never really felt like a friendship to me. Same thing with the math genius. White Tiger is a bodyguard for her, but I wouldn't exactly say they're friends. They don't really do anything together. The author mentions, I think it's later on, but like, oh yeah, I went with the math genius to some like gay nightclub a time or two, but this is just sad. We don't actually go there. That probably would have helped if you had the scene to establish their friendship, but for right now, it's the author keeps saying that, yes, my female character definitely has female friends. It really doesn't feel that way. So the maid is in jail, and Wu is going to do a rally to like speak about the revolution has gone too far. Now that it has personally affected me, it has gone too far, my friends. But then the lights go out in the capital, and there's news of a chrysalis pilot rebellion on the Han frontier. Quinn can't go to quell the rebellion because he's still super sick, so Wu goes in the Golden Dragon, and she has this back and forth argument with them about both sides are trying to build paradise and such. She climbs into their mech and gets in to fight the boy. The battle ends with both their chrysalises slamming into the mountain. I did think at first it was going to be her murdering this 14-year-old boy, but that is not what happens. The rebellion is over. The female pilot in the dragon is dead. The boy has been put on trial. Oh, and her eunuch died during the battle. Even though this guy's like not really a character, she's kind of crazy after the battle, and we have a woman moment where she goes to Shima Yi, the guy who's like the go-between with the gods and the emperor, and uses his tablet, and she's gonna write a note that actually this is the Hundan's planet and they're the natives and everything they know is false and all that stuff. She posts it, even though this will have radical, drastic consequences for millions and millions of people, but it doesn't actually get posted. The gods intervene, and muffled audio comes through the speakers, and it is Yizzy's voice, and then the doctor, where they are talking about faking data. The emperor thinks that he's really sick and has a bad immune system, when in fact he doesn't have a bad immune system, and they've been lying to keep him caged up in the palace. This is just too insane and badly written. Look, I know we're trying to show that she is in fact upset about what happened, but for this supposedly conniving woman who is biding her time to take power for herself, to do something so drastic and stupid, like, yeah, she's emotional right now. Like, if you wanted to make an argument against women being put in positions of power, maybe you could look at this writing and be like, see, she can't handle it. So Quinn goes to kill Yizzy, but Yizzy actually gets the drop on him and decides to spare Quinn and tells him to end the terror of the revolution. I doubt that's going to happen. And then Yizzy just disappears and no one can find him. And then on 4:30, honestly, this just goes on and on and on, where we have Quinn trying to seduce Wu Zetian, and it's so fucking boring. He also admits that he's kinda gay. Oh, well, if I were a man, would you still be attracted to me? Again, you know, with the I wish I was a boy shit. You truly haven't seen very far into my memories, have you? Is everyone gay? Like, in this world, in this story, is everyone just fucking gay? Whatever, let's move on. And then this was really, really subtle. Don't you hate it when male authors sexually objectify women and like, whoa, she's got big tits and a nice ass and thighs, and I guess a woman's face is attractive to some people, but really like boobs. But on 4:34, we have this, where she's trying to seduce the emperor, and he trails off while staring at my admittedly very large breasts. I cross my arms over my chest to his visible disappointment. Don't objectify women. Objectifying women is wrong and sexist. By the way, my self-insert character has like huge tits. I just want to throw it out there that my self-insert, very attractive, incredibly attractive. Just so you know, she's in fact not ugly. And I must confess, boys, with her foul, oriental, yellow, cat-eyed magic, I confess I grew to lust after our author Ziran Zhao.
For months he had been a client, but he seemed a gentleman. He'd pay, but we never. Then one night, he put something in my drink.
That's not actually true. I think she's a psycho cunt and I don't want to be anywhere near her, but we will continue reviewing her books. I don't care that the eunuch guy is dead, and yeah, you know, we're told she's upset, but really, outside of like bitching that there needs to be prison reforms, I don't think he really did much at all. So yeah, I don't care that he's in fact dead. He's kind of just, okay, character is dead now. And on 4:41, Wu thinks to herself, it was a foolish thing to do anyway. The truth would have destabilized Huaxia further, and we need it to be as stable as possible before we go after the gods. It's a bit more than that. It's a bit more than just a foolish thing, because you're directly angering these powerful beings that literally fly above you and have technology that you can't imagine, deal with. So a little more than just a foolish thing, because you're literally throwing away everything in a moment of rage, but forget it. Let's keep going. She says she would rather kill herself than get pregnant. They have sex after like forever. Oh my god, it took so fucking long to get to this point. But yes, they have in fact finally had sex. Quinn passes some prison reforms because, whoa, shocker, the violent masses have killed more people than they should have. So there's some reforms. The Dragon pilot, the boy, is being sent to a re-education camp. That's nice. There are no bad connotations with that. I did think she would actually hurt him more, but that does not come to pass. The boy is not mentioned throughout the rest of the book, so I'm a little shocked by that, but maybe in a later book, book 3, the boy will come back to be tortured by Wu. I could see that. We get some more commie bullshit here on 460, 461. She talks about the need for paid parental leave and government subsidized childcare. Although I personally cannot be more uninterested in raising a family, I can't ignore how it's an important part of many women's lives and a major obstacle to raising education and employment rates amongst them. So she hates the very idea of having a family or anything like that. Definitely with being a mother, absolutely opposed to that. But let the government be the parent. Let the government do everything. Don't raise your own children yourself. Instead, we're going to pay other women, stranger women, government worker women, and they will raise your child for you. And of course, with this state-run daycare and then public education system, they will naturally be fed nonstop propaganda in support of the party. I'm sure in communist regimes they would really give any other ideology a fair shake, right? Of course. Just this bullshit. And they also talk about a new currency, merits, which can only be earned through work and cannot be transferred to others. The tougher the job, the more merits someone can gain. Then they can exchange them for luxuries available exclusively from a government catalog. It's a way to encourage people to do those jobs while fairly distributing what's been confiscated from old order elites. That is such, not even just naive bullshit, but it's willful ignorance bullshit where you think that it would immediately become a government stooge thing where you did something for this one manager or whatever, so now you're getting some merit points or whatever the fuck. It would absolutely be corrupt. It would 100% be corrupt as shit. But let's leave that there, and then suddenly we're on the night of them going to kill the gods. It's page 465. I can't believe we just jumped from just setting up the government and then, hey, it's the night we're going on the rocket. I don't know. I was expecting a better transition, a deeper transition, but now suddenly we're here. We have, well, just about 60 pages left, like 63 pages for the book. So just about 63 pages left in the PDF. And they've done all the math and all the bullshit, and they're launched in the Yellow Dragon, and they're aimed at the Heavenly Court, and they hit it. They are able to crash into it, and it is a space station. They're up there. They have next to no supplies. They didn't bring any guns. It's just rather retarded. Like, yeah, they have their spirit armor, and that's really well and good. That's probably better than a gun, but okay, the plan is to attack the Heavenly Court with the Golden Dragon, and it's just two people, given they are very powerful chrysalis users, but the Golden Dragon isn't usable anymore. I was expecting more planning, right? I mean, months and months and months into this, and then, I don't know, it seems like they're woefully unprepared here. Oh, they're like fighting drones and other machines. They're like in some residences and stuff. There's a big aquarium. And in one of these dwellings is a weird cat animal. It's not really addressed. I assume it's supposed to be a servant or like a pet, but it seems too sentient to just be a pet. And now we get some lore dropped on us. These people are a part of something called the Melian Republic. Humans are here, and the cat people are not the ones running the Heavenly Court. It's a group of humans. Yizzy comes to greet them, and he explains that most of the people living in the Heavenly Court are Melian soldiers or employees of a company called Vivasi Minerals. And hundreds of other worlds besides theirs that are populated, and there's a bunch of other civilizations out there. And yes, there are a bunch of other human strongholds on their own planet. This planet, the Hundun planet, was being mined for the ore, the Hundun spirit metal, and a bunch of other civilizations had stakes on the planet, but eventually the Melians defeated the other guys, and now they have monopoly on this resource. And this resource, the spirit metal, is super important because that's what they make spaceships out of and a lot of other technology. So it's literally the most valuable resource in the known galaxy or universe. It's the most valuable thing, and this one civilization, this one race, has a total absolute monopoly on it, and all the other civilizations have to buy it from them. And the tribute girls that they would send up to the gods, these girls are just used as whores, so that's what's being done to them. Perhaps they're not being raped, quote unquote, but I think I would consider it to be rape, or at least they're being coerced into doing it, because you get brought up to a space station, you're not allowed to go back down, and they're encouraged to work in the entertainment district. So it kind of sounds like rape to me, but we have that too. And one of these people have come along with Yizzy, and they say that this person has no gender. It's not a boy or a girl. That's cute. And of course, our author is going to have this shit. And apparently it's not just this one little freak, but there's a bunch of them, and none of them have a gender, you know? Whoa, the Melians are kind of, complicated, right? I mean, good, bad, man, woman. Does any of that even, exist, man? That's deep. That's really, really deep. Non-gender, I interpret it as a woman. Helen, I'll go with a woman, is actually mixed race, meaning her mother was brought up as a tribute from Huaxia, and her dad is like a Melian, so she's this half-breed. And I actually feel really bad for her, because her mother was forced to work as a prostitute and then was probably raped or at least coerced into having sex. And then we don't directly say it, but we basically say that her mother committed suicide because she just couldn't stand living on the space station anymore. But all of our characters are very, very hostile to Helen. I'm not a feminist, but it felt extremely antagonistic towards women, and for this person who was just born into these very harsh circumstances and doesn't have a lot of control in their lives, you would think Wu Zetian would be a little more empathetic. But maybe it's going to be some book 3 bullshit where she goes whoa, I'm a total cunt. I'm going to pretend to be nice for a couple pages and then go back to being my normal self, because that's just who I am deep down. There's no one good down there. It's just me. That's you, default. And Helen is helping them because she's basically with the hippie party, and there's some election coming up between the more young, progressive, left-wing group that she's with and the old, staunch, conservative bad guys who really want to oppress everyone who's down there and just keep the spirit metal flowing. So their planet was actually a prison planet, so the Mongolians were sort of right about that, but it was also a mining planet too, and Wu-ass was this really all done for foreigners' profits. Yes. Oh, and so they're trying to escape and steal a ship to go back to Huaxia, right? And she feels Shimon's spirit pressure, and then, oh my god, it's Frankenstein Shimon, and she has to face him alone. I didn't care about Shimon in the first book, so I don't really give a shit here, and she ends up killing Frankenstein Shimon, and who fucking cares? They end up stealing this giant ship, and Helen is basically saying, like, hey, let's negotiate. I'm going to use my political context to make sure that you and your people are no longer oppressed. You can be given a more fair, equitable trade. And the book is terrible. I know that's not very shocking if you've been listening this whole time, but yes, in fact, the book is awful. Because Helen thought that they were going to steal this big ship, and now they have a bargaining chip and they can negotiate for better terms for their people. They can have access to greater technology and education, and they could perhaps not have freedom, not autonomy, but they're in a much stronger position than they were before, right? They are, I don't know, perhaps a protectorate, more of a semi-free state, a commonwealth, much better than being ignorant and exploited prisoners and minors for this company that they don't even know exists, right? That's certainly a step up from what they used to be. But of course, this is a very badly written feminist mecha thing. So what do? It is the most insane shit. They have their giant ship. They're facing down the heavenly courts, the giant space station. Quinn Zhang and I look at each other. I wonder if we're thinking of the same quote from the Book of Laborism. As long as the yoke of power remains in the hands of the profitizers, any concessions won by the laboring class can be taken away. He says that even though one party is nicer, it's showing no indication of granting us true freedom. Okay, that's true, but it's 100% a step above from the position that you're in right now. There's no scenario where we fly back to our lives with no consequences. No shit. You attacked the Heavenly Court. This is an incident. Systems like this don't maintain themselves by tolerating rebellion. That's true. Once the Melians catch their breath from the shock of our attack, they'll retaliate one way or another to make an example of us. Either they have the ability to kill us all, or they don't. The only thing we can control is how easy we'll make it. They send out this giant key blast at the trade station, and they annihilate the Heavenly Court. And Helen, our race traitor, who was against her own people, has just led to the massacre of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions. The Heavenly Court is gigantic. It's a huge space station. This is something I didn't mention before, but it is on page 438. And Wu says, I have no doubt they'll write memos to complain about how her womanly brain can't possibly understand economics beyond how to shop for a family dinner. I would like to say this directly to the author. You are a stupid woman and you don't understand economics. You are a fucking retard and you're also a really bad writer. Okay, what is our situation? 1. The Heavenly Court is being controlled by a massive civilization that has a giant empire. There are other civilizations out there that are not on good terms with the Melians, who are hundreds and hundreds of years behind in technology. You are completely outmatched by the Melians and probably any other spacefaring civilization. You are so far behind them in technology, it's not funny. Other questions I want to bring up. Is this the most efficient way of doing this? Of having pilots and chrysalises hunt Hundans down and then tribute some of their husks up to the Heavenly Court, gathering spirit metal to sell it in this way? This is the most valuable resource in the galaxy, and you leave it up to these people who don't even know what the fuck they're doing? Why don't you harvest it yourselves? Again, you have tech that these people down below can't even dream of. Surely you could handle the Hundans better than they could, right? Something that gets mentioned is that the Melians have a lot weaker spirit pressure than like the Emperor and Wu. So maybe there's something there that they've become like weak in their space station. But the question remains, why wouldn't you mine this material yourself with your own people that are loyal to you and your empire? Why go through all this convoluted bullshit if this is the most valuable thing in the galaxy? Does that make any goddamn sense? And also, blowing up the space station. This is retarded. You're not winning a war. You managed to steal a singular ship, and now you've guaranteed that this empire has to throw everything they have at you. Let's talk about the American Revolution for a moment. One, rebels almost always, in the vast majority of circumstances, lose. The empire, the kingdom, the state almost always annihilates the rebels. It's very rare that the rebels win, especially on their own. For our American Revolution, if we did not have outside assistance from Spain, from France, the Netherlands, there might have been a few other smaller countries, but you had a lot of European powers who did not like Great Britain because Great Britain was the most powerful empire on the planet, and anything that hurt Great Britain was good for them. You would probably have no shortage of allies amongst the other civilizations who don't like the Melians, and they for sure don't like buying spirit metal from them at probably hugely inflated prices, right? If you just played nice for now and got access to all this new technology, and you have communications, and you now have interstellar travel, you could reach out to these other civilizations and form alliances, or at least open up talks. And now these people would be interested in supporting a free planet here. Not that these people necessarily give a shit about you and your rights and your people and blah, blah, blah. But this hurts the Melians who have been oppressing us for fucking centuries, who have just been bossing everyone around the galaxy. This is great. Also, this interrupts the production of spirit metal for the Melians, so now maybe they don't have a huge military edge on everybody. There's so much there. But White Pill, you could say, they've now hurt the Melians, and now these other nations still might want to come to terms with them and try to form alliances or something. That could be true, and something like that could happen, and it probably will, and it'll be written rather badly. But you can't be isolationist unless you're incredibly powerful. There's a few nations on Earth who could pull off isolationism. America is one of them. We're gigantic. We can produce everything that we really need within our own borders. We'll have to trade for some stuff, but we can afford to. You can't be openly hostile to the Melians, for one, when you haven't gotten anything out of them really. And then you haven't even bothered, you don't even know what other civilizations are out there. Maybe no other civilization is willing to assist you. And then, yes, it's better to kiss ass to the Melians and accept a inferior position within their empire, but it's something. It's more than what you have. Right now, this is a gay little rebellion, which through the power of girl boss and homosexuality, I'm sure it will win. But I just found myself incredibly annoyed with this. This doesn't make sense. This Ziran Zhao, the author, I'll speak to you directly. Do you want to know how exactly I know you are in fact a woman and not a man? Through writing like this, through these very rash, emotional, just dumb fuck decisions. I'm going to tell everyone the truth about the planet. That's a woman moment. I'm going to blow up Heavenly Court. That's a woman moment. Terrible. Genuinely so god-awful. What the fuck? Even your beloved communism got a lot of support from a lot of other nations, It didn't just work on its own. It got help from a lot of foreign powers. Otherwise, it would have been crushed. And who knows? Maybe the number 2 civilization decides that, the Melians aren't doing so hot right now. I'm actually going to invade this planet and try to take it for myself. And now your people are caught in the middle of this intergalactic war. And you don't have any treaties, you're not negotiating with anybody, so no one really gives a fuck about war crimes committed against your people, and no one is there to advocate for you. What the fuck are you going to do then? And if you went through this path of less violence, you would have the support of the gay faggot leftists of the Melian Empire. That's something, but now you have nothing. You don't have their support either. I know it's all going to work out. I know everyone's going to be super gay and everything, but my God, this was aggravating. And no, women don't really understand economics. Because guess what? If you still like traded in Hundun spirit metal, you can build up your own fleet, right? You can also trade and like buff up your allies so that if it did come to war between the Melians and you, then something could be there. But I'm sure in book 3, they're gonna like make peace with the Hundans, and the Hundans are gonna reveal that they all come from some like great metal vagina, and this is actually a spaceship, and they're gonna go across the universe in the metal vagina and defeat the patriarchy or something. That'll happen. Don't steal that. Don't steal that idea for book 3, okay? I'm copywriting it right now. And apparently the Melians are fairly far away. It will take them at least 6 months for them to send ships here. So they have time. But what are you doing in that time? You don't even know how to make a fucking spaceship. You have one ship. It's a really big one. But, one ship is one ship. That's not a fleet. That's not an armada. Why exactly wouldn't these guys be able to, like, keep your ship occupied and then, like, bombard your planet and just, like, fucking annihilate your entire population? Whatever. And on page 524, she refers to Helen as the poor, foolish, false god. Helen is the only reason why you have the big ship. Helen is the only reason why you weren't killed on Heavenly Court, and you betrayed her trust. And Helen is the result of like rape. You think you would be kind of sympathetic considering this is supposed to be like a feminist book. She didn't have a choice to be a member of the Melian race, she didn't have a choice. Quinn should be sympathetic because his mother was forced into prostitution, and he's actually half of one group of people, and then like enemy soldiers like raped his mother, so he was a half-breed and he wasn't treated well because of it. Wu should definitely be more understanding and sympathetic, but she's not. And then on 527, when they're flying back to the planet, they have the big ship and everything, she attempts to murder Quinn. I don't get it. This is another woman moment where she just pulls out a knife and stabs him in the heart, but he's not dead. So she did try to murder him here. She says, "I'll be fine. I can be his empress. Together we can prepare for the Melian's retribution. Maybe he'll listen to me and try to communicate with the Hundans so we won't be fighting on 2 fronts. All I have to do is trust him." And then he tries to comfort her because she looks sick, and then she detaches her sword and plunges it into his heart. They flee out of the ship, and he's like pursuing them in the spaceship. It's really gay and stupid. Yizzy says, "The baby's not yours, maybe. Probably not anyway. I did my best to sabotage the procedure. If it worked, the baby's biological mother should be Auntie Wei herself instead of you." So it's a will they, won't they, I guess. I'm not really interested either way. I assume the baby will, in fact, be revealed to be hers. And Quinn stabbed through the heart. He still lives. He's pursuing them somehow. And also, maybe Shimon is alive because something like the vermilion bird shows up and saves her. I don't know what the fuck any of this shit is. It's like a Shimon armor bird thing, somewhat human. They're on a beach somewhere. It says Mai Niang. And I don't know what Mai Niang means exactly, but I will look that up. So just putting this into like the search function of the PDF, when she has a dream before of Shimon, Shimon does call her Mai Niang. Yeah, he does it again in another dream. And then at the very end, the thing that speaks to her says Mai Niang. So it looks like Shimon is alive somehow in this new form. So, okay. Quinn being alive is so retarded. He makes it home. He says that the gods are bullshit. He still wants Wu Seitan, and he doesn't want to fucking kill her. He says that a son needs a mother. So gay. It's so like anime and just badly written. For 528 pages, Shimon is maybe alive again, so we can erase that from actions having consequences. It looks like he's alive. Quinn, the Emperor, is still alive despite being stabbed, so that hasn't been resolved either. The gods are still there. The Heavenly Court has been destroyed, but now we have a bunch of new questions and stuff that hasn't been resolved where, okay, the Melians are out there. We don't know what they're going to do or what's going to happen. We haven't done anything with the Hundans. And I guess the rebels are gone and, communism has won the day. So isn't that super exciting? So little was resolved. Even all the relationship shit. Like, there's nothing with Yizzy, basically, for this book. And then with Quinn, you basically just removed it all because she tried to murder him at the end. And there wasn't even really a good reason. It's just, hey, there's an opportunity here. Stab. She's just a impulsive and stupid woman that has been carried exclusively by her high spirit pressure, so nothing really of her own talent or volition, and that is in fact the end of book 2.
你已经证明了你是一个狡猾、称职的对手，我为你的胜利祝贺。
So there we go. Our author has demonstrated across both books the weird female to male tranny delusional shit, very much a hatred towards men, communism, bad writing, mecha crap, Chinese mythology and history, colonizer and natives, homos. There's a lot in these books. There's so much in these books. There's also... This is relatively minor, but it's something I did dislike. I am completely against, when rich people, they can't have kids, so they pay a poor woman to, give birth to their child for them. I don't agree with that. I think, unfortunately, if you have fertility issues, then, maybe don't have kids or, get a amicable divorce or adopt or get an annulment, something. But I don't like the idea, and especially how our author would like to interpret it, is I want to be a mom and have kids, or maybe not our author specifically, but for these rich feminist women, that's what they want, but they don't want to go through any of the effort, any of the hardship to childbirth and to raising a child. They don't want anything to do with that. They want to pawn it off on some poor working woman and she can give birth to the baby and then she'll raise the baby and then maybe the baby is brought to me when it's raised, I guess. That just felt really shitty. Not exactly, the most pro-woman thing where we are just going to rent women's uteruses out and we'll just keep a certain group in the population as breeders, I suppose. I don't really have anything positive to say about book 2. It was long and boring and kind of shitty. We don't have interesting antagonists. An Lushan from the first book, I joked about it, but he was kind of entertaining as a villain. He was fun when he appeared on the page. No one's really fun here. We make some limp dick, lukewarm attacks on communism, but ultimately, we really do agree with everything that communism pushes for. And we're like, oh yeah, nothing's going to be perfect. But this is basically perfect. It's as perfect as a system can get, and it's communism. I assume that Wu Zetian will show up with an army of Hundans or something in the Great Metal Vagina and battle Quinn, and maybe Quinn, will submit to her and they'll be emasculating, and then she'll be like, castrate yourself if you want to be my co-pilot, and be like, whoa, these books sucked. I don't want to keep ranting and raving. I think we have dragged the author through the dirt enough. Real life Wu Zetian, I'm not going to really get into her history, but from what I understand, I looked this up a few weeks ago, she was a lowly concubine of the court and this emperor. The emperor would just have sex with her and such, but she didn't really have a very strong position. The wife was concerned. There was another concubine she was worried about. So she got Wu Zetian brought back to court, and then Wu was able to seduce, I think it was a new emperor, and become like his wife. So now she's in this really great position. What happens in reality, as opposed to this little power fantasy, is Wu gives birth to 2 children, 2 male children, and both of these male children go on to become emperor. So when her husband dies, she is named regent, right? Because her sons are too young to yet take the throne. She's a smart woman. She's definitely clever and crafty. She's not stupid, not in the slightest. And then she's just acting as regent and building up a power base over the years. When her first son takes power, there's like a fallout between her and the first kid, and the first kid gets like exiled because her son wanted to be the emperor and felt that Wu had too much control, and he ended up losing that little power struggle. And then for the second son, Wu declared herself empress, or had her son declare her the empress, so she was the first and only empress of China for a good amount of years. And then when she was very old, her second son, I think, sent her to a Buddhist temple or something and declared himself emperor, and there you go. She only got as far as she did because the emperor liked having sex with her, and also because she gave birth to 2 male children. If she hadn't done that, they would have just slit her throat or exiled her or something. So, like, your weird girl boss, female fantasy character in real life only got as far as she did because men liked having sex with her, and she had 2 boys. If she had a daughter or whatever, was Wu Zetian like a real life feminist icon, blah blah blah? No, not at all. And maybe she doesn't have to be. She didn't challenge any of the patriarchy or any of that crap. She was really just focused on obtaining and maintaining her own power and influence, which isn't a bad thing. That's what most rulers do, so we shouldn't really judge her for that. There you go. If you want to be a powerful woman, you gotta sleep with a powerful guy, and then you have to give him sons. There's your feminist 101 lesson. Do with that what you will. I should have one more video before I go on hiatus for probably 3 weeks. That video won't be much, but there you go. I have some other book reviews on the channel. You can check out Cultural Drive-By on Daniel Green and one on Brandon Sanderson. I'm not a fan of either. If you liked the video, you could like. If you want to subscribe. You can comment down below about how amazing this Girl Boss series of books was and how I suck. I don't know what my next Cultural Drive-By will be. If you have like an author in mind, preferably a leftist author, a booktuber, I would love to rip them apart. I do enjoy these. They are fun. It is cathartic. I will now briefly shill my own work. You may have noticed some of the artwork on the screen. Hopefully you're just listening to this and not just watching the screen, because that would be really boring. This is probably going to be 3 hours or something to listen to once I edit it. But I have my own 2 books out. Yes, my own 2 books. We have Dualhan Summer and Dualhan Fall. These are dark fantasy books set in Ireland in 999 AD. It deals a lot with Irish mythology and folklore. It's about this young girl, Neve, who hires this man named Dualhan along with this talking head named Pig to find her father while there's this war going on. So it deals with them battling monsters and uncovering more of the world and their own past, because neither of them have their memories. It's kind of, dark fantasy, found family. If you are interested, I have a link to it below. You can read them for free on my Substack, but you can also buy them on Amazon. It's $1 for the Kindle edition, and then I think it's $10, $11 for the print books. If you're interested, each book has beautiful illustrations in it. The first book has 10, and the second book has 14 or 15, but the artwork is amazing at the very least. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you all for listening. Oh, and yes, I did not forget, you boys have been so patient with me We have the most beautiful outro music ever. I've outdone myself. I am patting myself on the back. It's good. Boys, boys, boys. This is good outro music. I don't care how well this video performs. I like it to do well. But if it doesn't, I'm still proud of this outro music. Just listen. Please, God, just listen. Zirhan Zhao, if somehow you are listening to this, if you couldn't keep yourself away, and you also avoided being drowned in a pig cage for being chubby, then this one's for you.
今天看起墙上写着秦香莲的32岁了，装个当朝驸马郎的气质王啊，满皇上的徽2岁了，装个当朝。今天看起墙上写着秦香莲的32岁了，装个当朝驸马郎的气质王啊，满皇上的徽2岁了，装个当朝。今天看起墙上写着秦香莲的32岁了，装个当朝驸马郎的气质王啊，满皇上的徽2岁了，装个当朝。今天看起墙上写着秦香莲的32岁了，装个当朝驸马郎的气质王啊，满皇上的徽2岁了，装个当朝。今天看起墙上写着秦香莲的32岁了，装个当朝驸马郎的气质王啊，满皇上的徽2岁了，装个当朝。今天看起墙上写着秦香莲的32岁了，装个当朝驸马郎的气质王啊，满皇上的徽2岁了，装个当朝。今天看起墙上写着秦香莲的32岁了，装个当朝驸马郎的气质王啊，满皇上的徽2岁了，装个当朝。今天看起墙上写着秦香莲的32岁了，装个当朝驸马郎的气质王啊，满皇上的徽2岁了，装个当朝。今天看起墙上写着秦香莲的32岁了，装个当朝驸马郎的气质王啊，满皇上的徽2岁了，装个当朝。今天看起墙上写着秦香莲的32岁了，装个当朝驸马郎的气质王啊，满皇上的徽2岁了，装个当朝。今天看起墙上写着秦香莲的32岁了，装个当朝驸马郎的气质王啊，满皇上的徽2岁了，装个当朝。今天看起墙上写着秦香莲的32岁了，装个当朝驸马郎的气质王啊，满皇上的徽2岁了，装个当朝。今天看起墙上写着秦香莲的32岁了，装个当朝驸马郎的气质王啊，满皇上的徽2岁了，装个当朝。今天看起墙上写着秦香莲的32岁了，装个当朝驸马郎的气质王啊，满皇上的徽2岁了，装个当朝。今天看起墙上写着秦香莲的32岁了，装个当朝驸马郎